Avengers Campus is one of the most disappointing things Disney has ever done. After the success of Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland and Hollywood Studios, Disney premiered an entire themed land themed to this corporation's other mega successful franchise with Marvel. And instead of immersing yourself into a completely different planet, they decided for Avengers Campus, they're gonna immerse you into campus. So that's already pretty boring. A lot of people work on a campus or go to school on a campus of some kind. So why on earth would we want to escape our reality into a campus? Like, come on, that's such a boring word too. Like, I don't want to think of the word campus or say the word campus when I'm at freaking Disneyland. Like, come on, guys. Just the entire pitch behind this land is lacking any sort of thought. When you think of your favorite moments in any Marvel movie, did it take place in a campus? Did it take place in an office building? No, it didn't. It probably took place in space or on Asgard or, anywhere. New York City even. That's more exciting than a freaking campus that's gray and dull and boring. So this is just one of my many problems with Avengers Campus. So today we're going to do a full in-depth look at this land and see where it falls short. Before we get started, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm a pretty small theme park channel and I would greatly appreciate your support. Thank you so much. So before Avengers Campus opened, Disney closed Tower of Terror in January of 2017 to be rethemed into Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, which opened in May of 2017, which, looking back on that was an insanely fast turnaround. It's crazy how quick they opened up that ride. When Mission Breakout opened in 2017, it was pretty well received. Obviously, there were still people complaining that Tower of Terror closed, but for the most part, a lot of people are happy with Mission Breakout, even if they think Tower of Terror is better. When it first opened, they had a little Avengers logo and a planter as a teaser for what could come in the future, and eventually that future came, because in 2021 California Adventure opened Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure, and the rest of Avengers Campus. To make way for Avengers Campus, they removed Bugs Land, which was the park's kids area. I was born in the 2000s, so I grew up going to Bugs Land. I spent a lot of time in there and I do miss it, mostly for nostalgia though. Like, I understand looking back on it, that area did have a lot of carnival style rides that you could find at like a fairground, but I still thought it was cute. Like Heimlich as a choo-choo train, that was fun. Those Beetles as a bumper cars underneath an umbrella, I thought that was a clever set piece. The land was covered in clovers, which was really cute. It had like a water play area and ladybug teacups. I'm just getting lost in my nostalgia now. It also had It's Tough to Be a Bug, which was traumatizing. I do not miss It's Tough to Be a Bug at all. So they replaced all those colorful bug ride vehicles and fun oversized clover props with a gray, depressing land with an Avengers logo and a alien fortress towering over it. So I feel like they botched the opening of Avengers Campus. If you look at Avengers Campus today, the big ride, the thing that's going to draw you into that corner of the park is Mission Breakout. But that had already existed for years before the rest of Avengers Campus opened. So like, why did you open the big draw to the land before the rest of the land? Because when the rest of the land opened, it was pretty underwhelming because it was supporting what was the big change that already took place. I feel like if they did it in reverse order, if they had Avengers Campus open up first and then they rethemed Tower of Terror to Guardians of the Galaxy, I think you would have reduced the backlash of Tower of Terror closing, because that just would have made sense. People would have understood what your plan was and what you were doing instead of just closing Tower of Terror out of the blue. And also, adding an e-ticket to an existing land just builds that land up. It builds the anticipation, it builds the energy. You look back at Galaxy's Edge, that place opened before Rise of the Resistance was ready. So a lot of people were kind of underwhelmed with Galaxy's Edge when it first opened, and I'll throw myself in as one of those people. But once Rise of the Resistance opened and it was widely received as one of the greatest rides in theme park history, Galaxy's Edge got a huge boost in both popularity and in popular opinion. From my perspective, at least. And that's definitely how I felt. I was really underwhelmed with Galaxy's Edge. I was like, wow, this really falls short, especially compared to Pandora, the World of Avatar. But once Rise of the Resistance opened and I saw the full picture, I was like, okay, yeah, this land is elite. The only ride that opened with Avengers Campus in 2021 was Spider-Man Web Slingers, a Spider-Man Adventure, which is still one of the dumbest names that I've ever heard from any theme park ever. A lot of people criticize this ride really heavily, and I understand understand why. Spider-Man is one of the biggest franchises ever, not just in Marvel, like ever. And it's kind of a shame that they stuck this major character with a family ride. Not even a family ride, it's a shooting dark ride, which California Adventure already has. The Disneyland Resort had 2 of them, so this is the 3rd shooting dark ride that the Disneyland Resort has. It just wasn't really the greatest fit. It's a pretty short experience, and the shooting mechanic is criticized by a lot of people. Nobody wants to put in that much work to fire webs. Like, even visiting the parks, you can hear a lot of guests complaining about, oh, that hurt my arms, or wow, that took a lot of effort. And I feel like that's just one of many reasons why that attraction falls short. It did replace It's Tough to Be a Bug though, so personally I would take Spider-Man over It's Tough to Be a Bug, because I still can't get over what that show did to me as a child. One of the first videos on this channel is actually about this Spider-Man attraction. I was pretty soft in that video. I didn't, if I made that video today, I probably would have criticized it a lot more. Like, it's got a stupid name. The ride system doesn't bring any diversity to California Adventure as a park, which is a park that needs more diversity. It needs more high-profile attractions. It also wasted the Spider-Man franchise on a family ride. Like, I understand that every land at a Disney park should have some sort of family ride, because Disney parks are ultimately family parks where children and parents can have fun together, but it is a shame that they chose Spider-Man to have this type of attraction. Like, I feel like there'd be less complaining if this was like an Ant-Man attraction, or like literally anything else other than a Spider-Man attraction, especially since this attraction gets directly compared to the existing Spider-Man attraction at Islands of Adventure, which is way better because that's a full-scale dark ride. That's basically Universal's version of Indiana Jones. Universal's version of Indiana Jones absolutely destroys Disney's 3rd iteration of a shooting dark ride. I think Disney thought that the web shooting mechanic would be more engaging than it actually is. It seems that it fell short. The story isn't that engaging. It's kind of lame. It's also a really short attraction. Like, there's only 4 or 5 screens that you shoot at. So you wait in line for a Spider-Man attraction, and then it's short, it's tiring, and it's just not that fun, honestly. Like, this might be one of the least re-rideable attractions at the Disneyland Resort. Like, I maybe ride this thing once a year now. Like, I haven't been on it that many times. It's not really worth the wait that it gets. It does have a single rider line, and you still get to see the pre-show as a single rider, but it's just not it for me. There was just so much potential for a Spider-Man dark ride, and this just does not reach that potential at all. Speaking of dark rides though, we are waiting on the Avengers e-ticket, which has been promised for years and years and years. At this most recent D23 Expo, we learned that this attraction is going to be called Avengers Infinity Defense, which is a stupid name in my opinion. Like, I obviously don't know the story of the attraction. All I know is the synopsis that they've given us. It looks like it's going to use the same ride system that the Peter Pan ride at Tokyo Disney used. So I'm interested to see how that is. Ironically, it looks very similar to the Spider-Man ride vehicle at Islands of Adventure. So that's just really funny. I'm hoping that this is a S-tier dark ride for Disney. I feel like California Adventure is lacking that S-tier dark ride. I know a lot of people say that Radiator Springs Racers is an S-tier ride, but if you know me, you know that I think it falls short in many, many ways. So I hope this can be California's Adventure's like Rise of the Resistance, you know? I hope it can reach those heights. Because if you have a Rise of the Resistance level dark ride right next to Mission Breakout, that's an incredible 1-2 punch. But we'll see how it is, I guess. The biggest surprise from the D23 Expo was that Disney announced a whole ride. Like, we're getting an Iron Man themed claw ride. So it looks cute. It's gonna be a new flat ride for California Adventure. I gotta be real, when D23 happened, I was at work. So I was on break and I checked my phone and I saw that we're getting an Iron Man ride, and I saw that it was using the same ride system that Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey was using, and I lost my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, we're getting another full-scale dark ride in Avengers Campus, because I didn't look into it. I just assumed it was gonna be a full-scale Iron Man dark ride, but it turns out it's just gonna be a generic claw ride, which is not the same. So I was expecting Forbidden Journey, and I got a family-style thrill flat ride thing, which, don't get me wrong, is still exciting. It's just not what I thought it was originally. So that's disappointing. But once those 2 rides open, Avengers Campus is going to be much more well-rounded because it's going to double in attraction count. It's going to go from 2 to 4. And obviously the 2 standouts are going to be Mission Breakout and Avengers Infinity Defense. And once that Avengers ride opens, I feel like a lot of people are going to ease up on their criticisms for web slingers, because it'll be clear that that's supposed to be like the tertiary supporting attraction for Avengers Campus. But I feel like the rest of California Adventure also needs to step up, and I'm optimistic that that's going to happen, because obviously they have the Disneyland Forward expansion plot, and it looks like we're getting a Coco boat ride of some sort. I'm really interested to know where that goes. A lot of people just assume that it's going to replace Goofy Sky School in that corner of the park, especially since that area is called Pixar Pier and Coco is a Pixar movie. So I'm interested to see how that works out. But the way that California Adventure is today, the lack of attractions in the park as a whole is really disappointing, especially with Avengers Campus. Another major component about Avengers Campus that Disney loves to promote are the characters, the face characters. And if you haven't noticed already from my channel, I am a rides person. When I go to a theme park, I want to ride the rides. I don't really care to meet characters. That's just not the type of guest that I am. I recognize that a lot of people love face characters, but I am not one of them. And I feel like Avengers Campus is a very character-driven land. And I prefer lands that are driven by attractions and kinetic energy. And oh boy, is Avengers Campus lacking kinetic energy. Basically, the only kinetic energy it has are the doors opening on Mission Breakout, the characters walking around, and Spider-Man swinging above web slingers, which only happens a few times a day. There was that clip that went viral of the Spider-Man animatronic crashing into the wall, so that was pretty funny. I wish I got to see that live. But if you actually sit down and watch the Spider-Man show, it's pretty unimpressive. Like, you just watch this live actor come out and do some awkward tumbles over some boxes that are basically on the roof for the Spider-Man attraction. It's just kind of awkward. He has some quippy dialogue that's kind of forced and cringy, if I'm being honest.
Okay, I need to test this new web fluid. Watch this!
And then the actor walks behind a wall, and then you have the stunt robot do its little flip, which is definitely impressive, but it's like a one-time thing. Like, I think I've only seen this show a couple of times because you see it once and then you don't really feel a need to watch it again. And that was like the big marketing push with Avengers Campus. It's like, we're opening a Spider-Man ride and Spider-Man is gonna frickin' flip over it. He's gonna web sling over it, you know? Obviously, web slinging scenes in Spider-Man films are like some of the most popular things in those movies. So to see it in real life is really cool, but you see it once and then you're like, all right, let's move on, you know? Like, I don't feel the need to watch that show again, especially since they make you sit through all those awkward tumbles and that awkward dialogue that I hate just to watch like 3 seconds of entertainment. It's just not worth it. But after the Spider-Man Stuntronic makes its landing, the live actor comes back out and then does a little meet and greet. So cool. I don't care for meet and greets, as I mentioned. They have a lot of different Avengers walking around Avengers Campus, aside from Spider-Man. Some of the most common ones that I've seen are Black Panther, Loki, and Thor. I will say, though, that the Loki and Thor face actors look nothing like Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, which I understand that's a high bar. That's kind of an impossible request, but it's just kind of unsettling when a man that looks nothing like the character that we all know very, very well is just walking around being that character. I don't know. Face characters just aren't my thing. I don't really care for them, but that's like the main selling point of Avengers Campus. The Avengers building, which does not have that e-ticket yet, it has a Quinjet on top of it, which I guess is visually appealing, but it's gray, once again. Just like most of the land, it's gray. And occasionally they'll do a little stunt show. In my opinion, it's not worth watching. Like, most of the times that I've seen it, I'm just walking through the land and oh, it just happens. Like, I don't know. The action in a Marvel movie scripted to be in a Disney park, it just doesn't mesh well together, in my opinion. Like, there's a reason you don't see Kylo Ren and Rey engage in battle in Galaxy's Edge. It's because it feels forced, it feels fake, and unimpressive. I feel like that's part of the reason why the Galactic Star Cruiser failed, is because they brought that action and it just fell flat because it's just scripted and fake and unimpressive. But Avengers Campus does this every day for everyday park guests, and it's just not there, you know? It doesn't have that wow factor. Something else that's kind of depressing about Avengers Campus Campus is that they built this stage for Doctor Strange, and it used to have this little show, but they got rid of it. So now there's just this Doctor Strange corner, and there's just nothing going on over there. So
this whole corner where the Doctor Strange show used to be is absolutely empty right now. Like, there's just absolutely no one over here. They dedicated this whole corner right here for basically an Instagram photo spot. Like, it's just a walkway to nothing, but it has a cool floor. And as you can see by the massive crowd here, there's so many people dying to take Instagram photos. Like, theme park real estate is really valuable, so the fact that they wasted this much space just so people could take Instagram photos is really stupid. And then they got this cool thing right here, and then that's where the show used to be, in this little stage area. But it's just absolutely empty because there's nothing going on over here. So this is a total failure. Like, this whole area is an absolute waste of space. There's no reason to wander into this corner unless you're complaining about a theme park land like I am. There's nothing going on. Bugs Land had better use of space than this area. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
That's a colossal failure for Avengers Campus. You dedicated an entire space to have a Doctor Strange show, and you got rid of it, so that's absolutely ridiculous. Another thing that's a downside about Avengers Campus is that this is like pitched as a full-scale immersive land for California Adventure, but they did not upgrade bathroom infrastructure from Bugs Land, so they still have the bathrooms for a kids land in Avengers Campus. Like, they definitely should have upgraded them. They should have made them bigger to accommodate the heavier traffic that this corner of the park was going to receive with an Avengers land, but no, they just repainted the bathrooms, and they're the exact same. So
filming the restrooms is really creepy, so I'm trying not to do it, but I swear to God, there's a line, and it's not even that busy today. Like, these midways are pretty wide open, aside from the part that I'm filming right now in front of Spider-Man, but that's kind of embarrassing.
That's pretty depressing. Another thing we have to talk about is the food. I actually like Pim Test Kitchen. A lot of their offerings are pretty fun. They're pretty good. Obviously, the food is really overpriced because it's a Disney park, but some of their breakfast options are really good. I like the sandwich that they have. It's really tasty. And the visual gag that they have with the pretzels, that's really cute. That's really fun. So Pim Test Kitchen is a W in my opinion. They also have a few shawarma stands around Avengers Campus. Those are also pretty good. It's not wildly impressive, you know, it's good theme park food, you know, it's fine. Another one of my major criticisms of Avengers Campus is the music that they play. It's ridiculous. So you can just walk into Avengers Campus and they'll be absolutely blasting the Avengers theme, and it feels really out of place. And when they're not blasting the Avengers theme, they're playing the Ant-Man theme, the Guardians of the Galaxy theme, a couple other pieces of music from Marvel films. But what makes the Avengers theme so impactful in the Avengers movies is that it plays when something heroic is happening. It's used at the climax of the films, you know, it's not used when the character walks into the frame for the first time, you know, like, come on. So just blasting that music feels really inappropriate. Like, it's not like when you walk into Galaxy's Edge, they're blasting the Star Wars theme, you know. You go ride Star Tours and it's playing throughout the attraction because exciting stuff is happening, you know. You waited in line, you're experiencing the experience that you wanted to have, and you're having that magical moment, and that moment is supported by that iconic Star Wars music. So it just doesn't make any sense that you're walking into a land, that moment's just happening, but you just feel calm, you know, you feel at ease because nothing's happening. You're just walking into a themed land. So I hope that the Avengers attraction includes the Avengers theme, which I would be very surprised if it doesn't. And then when that happens, they gotta stop playing that music in the area loop. They gotta figure out something else. Because I don't want to walk into Avengers Campus and hear the Avengers theme blasting and then wait in like an hour plus line for Avengers Infinity Defense and then get on the ride and then experience the attraction and then have that heroic climax where the Avengers theme is playing. But it was undermined because I already heard it earlier in the day. Like, hearing that music is gonna mean more if you hear it while you're experiencing that heroic moment on the Avengers attraction, you know? So I really hope they fix that. because that's honestly one of my biggest problems with Avengers Campus. It's really stupid. And once again, in terms of visuals, the most visually exciting thing to look at in Avengers Campus is Mission Breakout. And the colors of Mission Breakout completely clash with Avengers Campus. Like, it doesn't make much sense. So to summarize, my biggest criticisms of Avengers Campus are the fact that it's a character-based land. It's visually unappealing. Most of the land is gray and dull, or brown and dull. They misuse the music from the Marvel films. The land has zero kinetic energy from attractions, and it has a really boring premise. I don't want to go to a campus to escape from my school campus or my work campus, you know? And on top of all of that, the attraction that opened specifically with the land was a massive disappointment. So all in all, Avengers Campus is just a lot of wasted potential. It could have been so much better. I'm not as hard on Avengers Campus as I was on Pixar Pier because it's getting more expansion. I want to look back on this review in a couple of years once those two rides open to see if my opinion changes. Chances are that it will, but I can't guarantee anything. Maybe I'll hate it even more. Who's to say? I feel like Pixar Pier is one of the dumbest things Disney has ever done. Before we dig into my problems with Pixar Pier, I really gotta emphasize that I am a nostalgic for the original Paradise Pier. I just feel like that land was so much more well done than the cheap reskin that we have today. So let's dig into what made Paradise Pier so great, in my opinion at least. Disney's California Adventure opened in 2001 and I was born not too long after that. So I grew up going to Disney California Adventure. And when I was a little kid, I was afraid of rides. So I really liked Paradise Pier because you could see everything. You could see what every ride did. When you go over to Disneyland, a lot of that park is indoor rides. So you have no idea what's going to happen to you when you go inside. Little kid me didn't really like that. So I always loved watching all the rides go around at Paradise Pier. And I got over a lot of my fears using the rides at Paradise Pier. Like, I could remember a time when I was afraid of Silly Symphony Swings, which is probably one of the tamest rides at the entire resort. But Paradise Pier did go through a couple phases. When the park first opened, Silly Symphony Swings wasn't even a thing. It was called the Orange Stinger, and it was in a giant orange. Golden Zephyr and Jumpin' Jellyfish are pretty much the only things that haven't changed at all. Goofy Sky School used to be called Mulholland Madness. Where Emotional Whirlwind is today, there used to be an SNS drop tower called the Maliboomer. You obviously still have the coaster and the wheel. When the park first opened, the sun was on the wheel, and then the Mickey was on the coaster. And then they traded so that the Mickey was on the wheel and then the sun was on Screamin'. And then with the Pixar takeover in 2018, the sun just completely disappeared, which is kind of a shame. But I just loved the kinetic energy in Paradise Pier when I was a kid. You could just watch ride vehicles go around for literally hours. All of the Screamin' ride vehicles had different colors, like the colors of the rainbow. Maliboomer really helped with kinetic energy on that right-hand side. But when they did get rid of it, they took the orange off the swings, so the Silly Symphony Swings was exposed, which I feel like kind of helped keep that kinetic energy, because you always have a ride vehicle going through the hairpin turns on Goofy Sky School. That's just kind of the nature of that attraction, and I feel like you always have one of either the two Jumpin' Jellyfish towers, Golden Zephyr, or you have the swings. At least one of those is going at one time. And then with the wheel, of course it's a Ferris wheel, so it spins, but you also have the swinging gondolas, so even when the wheel stops turning, you still see motion in those gondolas, which is just so much more interesting to watch than a normal Ferris wheel. The whole land looked beautiful at night. I would make the argument that it still looks beautiful at night. I feel like darkness can actually hide some of the flaws of Pixar Pier that we're going to dig into in a minute. But yes, I'm absolutely going to admit that I am nostalgic for the original Paradise Pier, and that's where a lot of my distaste for Pixar Pier stems from. I remember, I think it was 2017, the 2017 D23 Expo when Pixar Pier was announced. I remember seeing that concept art for the first time and just being so disappointed, because I love Paradise Pier for a long time. It was my favorite land at the entire resort, so change is scary, obviously. So when I saw that, I was like, dang, they're changing my favorite land. So I was really worried and anxious, but you know, the more that I thought about it, I kind of like cooled off. I was like, you know, you got to give it a shot. But I don't think I'm ever gonna forget how the crushing disappointment I felt when I first saw that concept art, because usually a lot of Disney's projects leak ahead of time, and the Pixar Pier project did not, so it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's just like, dang, that's brutal, you know? So let's dig into the problems I have with Pixar Pier. We're gonna start by looking at each individual neighborhood. So Pixar Pier is divided into 4 neighborhoods. The Inside Out neighborhood, which is where the Maliboomer used to be. We got the Pixar Promenade, which is basically just miscellaneous Pixar characters, which is the area behind the Fun Wheel. And then we got the Toy Story neighborhood right in front of Toy Story Mania, and of course we got the Incredibles neighborhood, where the entrance to the coaster is. So let's start with the Inside Out neighborhood. This is like pretty much the smallest one. They're all pretty small, to be honest. It's just that little helix area where that Maliboomer used to be, and of course instead of the Maliboomer now we have Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind, which is basically, it is literally repainted Flix Flyers. It's the same ride. So this is like as cheap as you can get for Disney. It's literally the 4th spinner in the entire pier area, so it's pretty irrelevant. Having Silly Symphony Swings and Golden Zephyr is like overkill enough. Plus you consider the fact that there's a carousel and now we have another spinner. It's just like, what is the point, you know? Like, that's so excessive. And it doesn't help that Zephyr, Silly Symphony Swings, and Emotional Whirlwind are all like pretty much right next to each other, and I think Emotional Whirlwind is by far the least interesting. It's the least visually appealing. It's completely hidden behind the Screamin' structure. I would say the only like major pro is that when it's spinning and an Incredicoaster train comes around, you get really lucky. It'll like line up perfectly with the coaster train, so both you and the train are spinning at like a very similar speed, and that's a really cool visual. But other than that, like, they didn't even get the Inside Out voice actors to come voice their characters for this attraction, so it's kind of bad. I mean, it used to be a smoking section, so I guess it's an improvement over that. But when you consider the fact that Maliboomer used to tower over the Screamin' Helix and provide kinetic energy for the land, I just feel like that is so much better than the Emotional Whirlwind, because when you look at Pixar Pier from Paradise Gardens Park, you can't even see it. Like, you have to look through the structure, and even then it's dumb. That's pretty much the bottom line of this. Speaking of dumb, we have the Pixar Promenade. So they didn't even assign a specific movie to the area where the wheel is. And I mean, I guess it makes sense because a whole bunch of Pixar characters are on the wheel. It just feels messy. It's, you know, it's cluttered. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel planned or organized at all. You also have the Games of the Boardwalk in this area, which have all been rethemed to Pixar. I would say that these are improved. And then you got the little Pixar ball that you can spin. There's one just like it in Tomorrowland. I forget the word for it, but those are pretty fun to mess around with. My main problem with this section is that it's lacking identity, and they changed the name of the wheel. When the park opened in 2001, it was the Sun Wheel. And then when Bob Iger came in and decided Paradise Pier needed to be more Disney, they put Mickey on it. That's great, you know. How else can you make it more Disney than putting Mickey's face on the wheel? And then it became Mickey's Fun Wheel. And now it's Pixar Pal Around, which is probably one of the dumbest names for any ride ever. And they kept Mickey on it, which that was a whole thing that I was worried about when this was first announced, was what are they going to do with Mickey on the wheel? Because that's California Adventure's icon now. Mickey on the Ferris wheel, that's like the little icon they use to represent the entire park. Disneyland has the castle, and then DCA has the Mickey's Fun Wheel. So I feel like you have to keep Mickey on the wheel, because that's like the entire brand of the park. You're not going to replace Mickey and make it a stronger image, you know? So they kind of screwed themselves there, because you can't take Mickey off the wheel. I remember seeing a few pieces of like fan art or concept art where they put the Pixar ball on the wheel, and that just looks so wrong. You gotta keep Mickey on the wheel, especially when you consider that Pixar Pier is the backdrop for World of Color, and having the Pixar ball as the backdrop for World of Color just doesn't make any sense. You gotta have Mickey there. It's Mickey's park. It's not a Pixar park. At least not yet. Who knows? So just the fact that Mickey is still on the wheel, but all the gondolas have Pixar characters on, also just feels cluttered and messy. It doesn't feel like Disney planned this out at all. It feels wrong, you know? Moving on to the next neighborhood, this is probably the strongest neighborhood. It's probably what got this idea rolling in the first place. It's the Toy Story neighborhood. And Toy Story Mania is a really solid ride. I feel like I don't like it as much as a lot of Disney fans do. Like, it's fine. It can be really fun, but it always has a huge line, and I feel like it's not worth the huge line. Part of that is because of the capacity. It doesn't have the greatest capacity. And that Lightning Lane can just bring that line to a crawl. I only ride it like once every few months or so, maybe like twice a year at most. I don't know. Like, it's a solid attraction. It's nowhere near my favorite, though. Like, even as a kid, I didn't like it as much as some people did, you know? And that's coming from a huge Toy Story fan. But I recognize its popularity, so I feel like that's why the whole pier is Pixar Pier now, because of this one ride, so I guess I should take my hate out on it. That being said, though, it is a solid attraction. However, I feel like the aesthetic of the Paradise Pier Toy Story Mania was better. Like, the brown color scheme outside, like, I feel like that looks better than this white, blue, and red color mix. It looks ugly, in my opinion. I'm not a fan. It looks, like, too much, you know? It's like, I prefer the simplicity. And then King Triton's carousel got rethemed to Jesse's Critter Carousel. This is probably an improvement. I like the little Toy Story characters from the Woody's Roundup animated shorts within the Toy Story 2 movie. Like, they're on the carousel now. I think that's really cool. And I'm a bigger fan of the Toy Story franchise than I am of Ariel. I would say that the carousel is an improvement. Congratulations, Pixar Pier. And then the final neighborhood is the Incredibles neighborhood. This is pretty much just the entrance courtyard for Incredicoaster, so it is really small. My favorite elements about this little corner are the waterfall that they put behind the carousel and the Jack cookies. I think those are actually really good. They don't seem to be that popular, like on the level of like a Dole Whip or a churro, but I feel like they deserve to be. They're actually pretty good. And I like how it ties into the Incredicoaster ride with the scent that Mr. Incredible's holding a cookie trying to lure away Jack with right before that big drop. And those two elements are about the only positive thing I'm going to say about this corner. Because holy cow, California Screamin' is so much better than Incredicoaster. It's not even close. I tried to trick myself into believing that Incredicoaster was an upgrade for a while, but it's not, dude. It's so bad. Retheming an existing coaster to a superhero or a superhero franchise, that's such a Six Flags thing to do. It doesn't feel like Disney at all. And to be honest, I feel like Six Flags could have done a better job than Disney did. Like, holy cow, this ride, the layout has a special place in my heart. You know, it's like a big roller coaster. It was my first inversion, like a lot of people. So this is a ride that I really credit for becoming a roller coaster enthusiast and not just a Disney fan. Because if this didn't exist, I might have just grown up to become a full Disney adult. I probably wouldn't care about Six Flags, Cedar Fair, SeaWorld, all these other amazing parks, you know? And I could say that about Paradise Pier as a whole. I feel like if I didn't spend so much time drooling over the kinetic energy in that land, I don't know if I would like Knott's as much as I do now, or even Magic Mountain, Cedar Point, Kings Island, all these amazing other parks that I love to talk about and I love to visit. Anyway, back on track. Incredicoaster, just looking at it in every possible element, I feel like it's a downgrade. I'm never gonna forget my first time visiting Pixar Pier after it first opened in 2018. I was watching Incredicoaster go around after not riding Screamin' for like 6 or 7 months, however long it was closed. Watching Screamin', the Scream tubes were like half enclosed. The side that's visible to the park was only like, it was still open air, so you could still watch all of the trains zip through the Scream tubes. But when they converted Screamin' to Incredicoaster, they enclosed all 3 of the Scream tubes, so you could no longer watch the train zip through all of them, which I feel like also drains the kinetic energy out of the land, which again is one of my favorite things about Paradise Pier. So that's really not cool. And just hearing the sharp cutoff of the train that launched up into the first Scream tube for the first time, that was like jarring, because it goes like silent, like immediately. Compared to Screamin', you would hear people screaming, you would hear the train roll up that first hill, even when it entered the Scream tube. Just that difference alone really caught me off guard the first time. So let's talk about the Scream tubes on ride. When we first got the concept art for Pixar Pier, it looked like they were going to add a 4th Scream tube on the final helix before the brake run. And of course that never happened, so cool. The first Scream tube that you launch into is probably my favorite. It has the cool lighting effects with Jack's vision. I feel like you're going the fastest through this Scream tube, so it's hard to tell that they're just static figures on a Disney ride. So this one is pretty acceptable in my opinion. I feel like it's the most well done. The second one, on the other hand, is god awful. I gotta be honest, it's terrible. You got Elastigirl that's like plastered up on the wall, and she's like all stretched out looking for Jack, and she's just frozen. frozen, and you're going up the lift hill at this point in the ride, so it's just like, what? What am I looking at? And then you see Mr. Incredible, who's holding the cookie, which does tie into the food stand outside of the ride, but you know, other than that, it's a static figure, dude. I can't believe Disney has static figures on their attraction. Like, their crown jewel. Walt Disney's, like, one of his greatest achievements is audio animatronics, and in 2018 they decided to plaster these like dolls on one of their biggest e-tickets. It's so dumb. I cannot oh my gosh, I can't believe this is still a thing. That Scream Tube is the worst. You can really tell it's just poorly done. I do like how there's at least some movement with Jack when he's gooey. When Mrs. Incredible is looking to grab him, at least he's not a static figure there, but he's a static figure when Mr. Incredible is looking to get him. So it's just so poorly done, and I feel like it completely contradicts the Disney legacy. Like, yes, it's a high-speed roller coaster, but at that moment, you're not moving quickly. It's just awful. And then the final Scream Tube is the big drop after the loop. I don't know what they did to this one. It just looks weird. Like they bent it out of shape so that they could add Jack flaming. So like the little creases on the middle there is just ugly. Okay, this is gonna be a total nitpick, but in the movies, Violet's force field is like a solid object, but somehow we just go straight through it. Like, what? And then Violet's hanging off the edge at the end of the Scream Tube. And earlier in the ride, you can actually see her. She's literally just a head attached to the top of the Scream Tube. Like, you can literally see that she doesn't have a body. It's just so poorly done, dude. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, not a fan. I just started ranting about the Scream Tubes. But let's dig into the premise of Incredicoaster. So they acknowledge in the pre-show video that this is a re-themed roller coaster. Apparently, it's been the grand opening of Incredicoaster for like 6 years now, because that's still the same premise. Like, Dash is excited that they re-themed the coaster to Incredicoaster. It's been years. Like, come on, guys. You can't theme a ride to, oh, it's brand new, when it very much isn't. The roller coaster itself was built in 2001, and this rethemed happened in 2018. It is now 2024, and Disney has not updated it. It's just so bad. It's unbelievable. I gotta be honest. Like, this is not a Disney story. This is lazy. Six Flags and Cedar Fair would do better than this. And the sad part is that it might be decades. In 20 years, it'll still be the grand opening of Incredicoaster. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we got the little vignettes. The first one that you passed, you see Edna as a static figure. And then you see Jack on a screen, like, teleporting around. I get that most e-tickets have this story where it's like, oh no, something goes wrong. That's the inciting incident to your adventure. But the whole story is that it's already a roller coaster. So the fact that they felt that they had to add a story where it's like, oh no, something went wrong and we have to fix it, but you're on the roller coaster, so you can't help us, you know? You're just watching them chase each other while you're on the ride. But I don't understand how they thought that they could communicate in a compelling story with a chase through static figures. It doesn't make any sense at all. I feel like the final Scream Tube was supposed to resolve the story at some point, the one that they removed, or I guess they didn't even remove it. They never added it, because the final vignette is a giant Jack, and he just comes back to Edna. Like, that's the whole conclusion. What a thrilling story, you know? It's unbelievable. But probably my least favorite thing about Incredicoaster is the stupid babies on sticks when you're going over those bunny hills on the way back to the station. I don't even know what to say. It's like the dialogue is like, oh no, he's multiplying, and then you just see babies on sticks. Like, again, they're static figures, but you can literally see where they attach to the poles that are on top of the Toy Story Mania show building. So it's just so bad. It's so bad. That might be the worst effect in, like, Disney history. Like, I'm not even, no hyperbole. But let's talk about another downgrade that Incredicoaster implemented, and that is the score. So instead of the iconic California Screamin' music going through, that matched perfectly with the layout, by the way, we get like snippets of the Incredibles 2 score interrupted by dialogue to further the story of a dumb chase. This is a problem that I have with some Disney coasters. It's like, it's a roller coaster. You don't need dialogue, you know? Like, that's the beautiful thing about Big Thunder Mountain and Space Mountain. They convey a story without using words. They use it through visuals and feeling and, you know, Disney magic, you know, stuff like that. I feel like on a roller coaster, show, don't tell is a really powerful tool. And I feel like this applies to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind as well. Like, it's a roller coaster. It's kind of hard to process dialogue while you're on a roller coaster. You know, like, even for me, someone who loves roller coasters, I had to ride Cosmic Rewind multiple times before I realized what they were saying. And as for Incredicoaster, I know this ride, this layout, like the back of my hand, because I've been on it so many times. So I can pay attention to the dialogue, but I remember the first time, I wasn't listening to that. I was enjoying the ride, man. Like, come on. It's a roller coaster. And I miss the simplicity of the California Screamin' soundtrack. Like, I'll even put earbuds in, press play at the launch, synced up with the music for California Screamin', so I can still hear the music during the layout. So that's pretty much the only thing you can do if you miss the California Screamin' music like I do. So it's really such a shame. It's such a downgrade. One of the biggest themes about the first Incredibles movie is that it's okay to be super. You know, talent is something that should be showcased. You should use your talents. You shouldn't feel like you have to oppress them, you know? Like, be you, pretty much, just to boil it down as simple as possible. And you want to know how Incredicoaster conveyed this theme in the actual ride? They took all of the trains that were different colors and they made them all the same, which they're all red now, and it's just unbelievable. It's so dumb. Like, if everyone's super, no one will be. So that's just the vibe that removing all the different colors gives to me. Like, it's just so dumb. And then my final note on Incredicoaster before we move on is the roughness. In 2018, when Disney was switching the whole land from Paradise Pier to Pixar Pier, they actually removed the loop on the roller coaster so that they can change the background from the sun and the Paradise Pier logo to the Pixar Pier logo, which, by the way, is brown and pretty ugly in my opinion. So I assumed that meant that they were gonna retract the loop, because the loop has been by far the roughest part of the ride for a number of years now. Like, even before the transition from Screamin' to Incredicoaster, that was the roughest part of the ride. And they just repainted the same loop and then they put it back. And the only reason I know that is because the loop is rougher than ever now. It's definitely the same loop. It feels identical, and that's just so frustrating because they literally took it out and they just put it back in. Like, that loop definitely needs to be retracked, because I'm sure that I was one of those kids that this loop was my first inversion, and I'm sure it's a lot of kids' first inversion. And if a young 6-7-year-old rides this ride today, they're probably going to think that all loops feel like that, when that very much isn't the case. So it's such a shame that this is like an introduction to inversions for a lot of people, and it's a bad one, like, straight up. I should be feeling sentimental about it, but I don't, because it's bad, you know? Like, they should have retracted this. And speaking of retract, there are multiple parts of this layout that I feel should have been retracked. Like, Big Thunder Mountain at Disneyland got a full retracking a few years ago, and I don't even think that ride was that rough. This is much rougher. I'm really surprised that they didn't take the extended downtime of the transition to actually address some of these sections. I'm pretty sure they worked on the launch. I feel like that was, as far as I know, that was their primary concern during the transition from, like, a technical perspective. But they really should have invested in some new track for this ride. It gets cycled so much every day, and there are just certain valleys that really rattle you around. Like, one that stands out to me is the valley after the final tunnel with Jack and Violet. That one's pretty gnarly. Of course, the loop. The whole ride, you just feel a constant jittering. It doesn't go away. It's not headache inducing, but I would say that the loop is the only, like, excessively rough part of the ride. And even then, I have been on rougher loops. But at the same time, we should hold Disney to a higher standard. They should have retracked this ride, or at least sections of it. Like, honestly, if they just replaced the loop, I probably wouldn't even be complaining about this at all. So it's just annoying, you know?
Like, why didn't you fix it when you could have? That's enough ranting about Incredicoaster. Now that we've been through all of the neighborhoods, let's just dig into the core foundational issues that I have with Pixar Pier. One of my main grievances is the fact that all of these neighborhoods are really incoherent. They don't mesh together really well, in my opinion. It doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel organized. It feels like something Universal would do. Like, Pixar isn't a franchise, it's a studio. And they have a number of franchises, including Cars, which has its own separate land. So why does Cars get its own land when Toy Story, Incredibles, Inside Out are all crammed together on the pier? It just doesn't feel right. It feels messy. I feel like all of these franchises deserve better, especially Toy Story. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Toy Story. I discussed this in my wishlist video for Disney's California Adventure, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already. But I think Toy Story should have been the whole land. Throwing in Incredibles and Inside Out and WALL-E to an extent, and whatever else you want to say is represented in the promenade area, it just doesn't feel right. The whole thing should have been Toy Story Pier or whatever, you know? Especially considering that 2018 was the same year that Toy Story Land opened at Hollywood Studios in Florida. I really dislike naming a land after a studio. At least Avengers Campus is Avengers Campus. It's not Marvel Land, you know? Marvel's a little different because all of their franchises are interconnected, but that falls under the Avengers heading, you know? Pixar isn't like that. They're all separate characters that live in their separate worlds. So just putting them all together isn't Disney, in my opinion. It's not immersive. It feels like something Six Flags would do, you know? It's not thought out at all. And that's probably the most frustrating part about Pixar Pier. It feels like it was a corporate mandate to make this change. It doesn't feel like anyone was actually passionate about it. There was no creativity put into Pixar Pier. It's just soulless. And I know a lot of people would make the argument that Paradise Pier was soulless, but I disagree. And I do recognize that part of that is nostalgia. So I feel like that land had a purpose. It had a personality. And to prove the fact that this wasn't thought out at all, you only have to look at the Paradise Pier Hotel, because just recently in 2024, it has reopened as the Pixar Place Hotel or whatever. When the transition was happening, it was still the Paradise Pier Hotel. And it was the Paradise Pier Hotel for years after Paradise Pier was gone. So it just didn't make any sense. They didn't think about the hotel at all. They didn't even consider it. Like, maybe it opened in 2024 because of delays related to the pandemic. But even still, 6 years is an insane amount of time, even for Disney. Like, it's not even Tron, where it's a brand new thing opening. It's a re-themed hotel. Like, how? You can't get much more simple than that, you know? And I really like the aesthetic of the Paradise Pier Hotel with the waves at the top. And it kind of towers over the land to an extent. I just thought it was a beautiful piece of the skyline. And I don't know how I feel about the new colors. I definitely prefer the Paradise Pier colors, but I don't know if that's because I'm biased or if that's because they're actually better. I just felt like they were more aesthetically pleasing. Like, the bright white and the red and the blue on the new hotel is just, it's too much, you know, in my opinion. I miss the calm colors, the blue and the like lighter yellow. I think it just looked nicer. So I'm not a fan of the Pixar Place Hotel. I mean, that's just from an outside perspective. I'm obviously not going to pay to go there. No, thank you. So just having that structure tower over the land for the first few years of its operation was just a giant reminder that this whole thing wasn't planned out, that it was messy, that it was a mistake. Another core flaw of Pixar Pier is the fact that it's half of a land. If you go back and look at Paradise Pier, it surrounded Paradise Bay. It was one coherent area. But when they switched over to Pixar Pier, they only rethemed the area from the sign near the World of Color viewing area all the way to where Incredicoaster's final helix is. So that left the area from Silly Symphony Swings to Ariel's Undersea Adventure like completely broken. Like, it was just alone now, and it still is alone. So now this corner of the pier is called Paradise Gardens Park. So technically Paradise Pier isn't fully dead because we still have Jumpin' Jellyfish, Silly Symphony Swings, Golden Zephyr, Ariel's Undersea Adventure, and Goofy's Sky School on top of the restaurants in that corner. The fact that they only changed half of the land is just bizarre. It's incoherent from a land perspective, not even within the land. Now from a park perspective, Pixar Pier is messing with the storytelling of Disney's California Adventure. And that's another thing. Pixar Pier, how does that fit into California Adventure? It feels like they've been moving away from the DCA vibe, but they just haven't pulled the trigger on a name change yet. And I don't really know why that is. When you got rid of Paradise Pier, I feel like you killed California Adventure, which is fine. You know, the identity of this park has changed drastically over the last few decades. Like, that's no secret. Honestly, that could be a topic for a whole other video. But really, the only thing left that's connected to California Adventure is Grizzly River Run, and I guess the 3 spinner rides in Paradise Gardens Park. And believe me when I say that it's not that hard to retheme a spinner. So really, Grizzly River Run is the only thing that's keeping this park's name from changing, in my opinion. This is completely getting off topic, so the main point is dividing Paradise Pier into Pixar Pier and Paradise Gardens Park is messy and incoherent, just like the neighborhoods within Pixar Pier. That being said, that was one of my major concerns because the World of Color show happens in Paradise Bay. So if the whole land was themed to Pixar and then you just have World of Color, which is a Disney show, it's very much not constrained to just Pixar. You like, for special events they include Marvel and Star Wars, and for the traditional show they have Pirates of the Caribbean. They do include Pixar films like Finding Nemo and It's Tough to Be a Bug, but World of Color is a Disney show. It's not a Pixar show, you know? So it wouldn't make any sense if the whole thing became Pixar Pier. Then why would they just have a World of Color show that is not Pixar in the heart of the land? So I just feel like that issue also contributes to the fact that nobody thought this out. This was a dumb idea and they should have just left it alone. Like, point blank period. That is the whole point of this video, but I gotta reiterate it multiple times. Even in the reality that we live in, where they only rethemed half of the land, it doesn't make any sense that Pixar Pier is the background for World of Color. It just doesn't feel right to me. Paradise Pier was very much a blank canvas for that show to be in front of, but now it doesn't feel right, you know? I don't even think that's because I am biased to Paradise Pier or because I'm a nostalgic. I think that's because it just doesn't make any sense to have a Disney show with multiple properties, especially with World of Color 1, which brought in Marvel and Star Wars pretty prominently. To have a Pixar land as the background for that show just didn't make any sense. And I feel like the same applies to the traditional World of Color, which is way better than World of Color 1, by the way. So just from whatever perspective you choose to look at this decision, it's just messy. It's dumb. I've been trying to find the pros of this decision for years, but I can't find any, you know, honestly. I'm curious to see if this land even has any defenders. Like, I feel like the people who like Pixar Pier weren't even big fans of Paradise Pier in the first place, so it's hard to find someone who's passionate about Pixar Pier on the positive perspective. I feel like there are plenty of people like me who just despise Pixar Pier. And I don't even spend that much time in that area of the park anymore. I used to love spending time in Paradise Pier. Today, I don't go over there nearly as much as I used to. And that contributes to me spending more time at Disneyland Park than DCA. I used to spend way more time at DCA, and now I just don't. This whole thing was a bad idea. And not only was it bad, I've discussed that at length, but it was cheaply done, so it was executed poorly. It's a bad idea executed poorly, and that's just the formula for failure, especially for a theme park when decisions like this are very permanent. Yes, it's a rethemed land that's technically been rethemed before, from Paradise Pier to Paradise Pier with Mickey and Friends, but it's been here for years now, and it's probably going to be here for years more. So it's not something that you can undo, especially for a giant company like Disney. You can't undo a change like this because it's admitting failure, and a company like Disney will never admit to failure, publicly at least. And retheming a land back to its original form is very much admitting failure. So that's just never gonna happen. I feel like the static figures on Incredicoaster are like the prime example of how this land was cheaply done. The fact that there was a fourth tube in the concept art which never appeared in real life is also contributes to that. that, and if you just look around, walk through the land yourself and tell me it's not cheaply done. They just slapped a new coat of paint on everything. There's nothing interesting. They didn't do anything interesting. They took the boring option every time. Whenever they were like, oh, what about this corner? What about the Ferris wheel? What about the carousel? You know, it's just, you got a giant static Jesse standing in front of the carousel. Like, what? You know, you go over to Disneyland and you don't see anything like that. It just doesn't feel like Disney to me. It feels cheap. It feels like something Universal would do, you know? It doesn't feel right. There's nothing magical about Pixar Pier. It feels soulless. I would liken Paradise Pier to a very good vanilla ice cream cone. I think it's like a high quality vanilla ice cream cone. When they made the change from Paradise Pier to Pixar Pier, I feel like instead of a really good vanilla ice cream cone, we got a really crummy and cheap chocolate ice cream cone. And for me, I would rather have the high quality vanilla ice cream cone compared to the crummy chocolate ice cream cone. Because on paper, we didn't lose anything. You know, it was just a generic land themed to a Disney studio, which again, I've discussed why I think that's a bad thing. But if you look at the change, on paper, you didn't lose anything and you gained new theming. But in practice, it was just so poorly done that I would rather have the cheap vanilla ice cream cone of California Screamin', Mickey's Fun Wheel, and Paradise Pier as a whole coherent land compared to the rotten ice cream that we have today. I don't want to end this video on a negative note, so before we wrap up, I'm going to dig into the major pros of Paradise Pier that I feel like we've lost. I have to mention nostalgia one more time. I feel like nostalgia might be inflating my opinion of Paradise Pier more than it should, so that's definitely a factor that is playing in favor of Paradise Pier. Pixar Pier doesn't have. One thing I really miss is the music of Paradise Pier. If you go back and listen to the area soundtracks, like, man, that's kind of like the soundtrack of my childhood, where like I remember hearing that music and just walking around and just, I felt the magic of Paradise Pier. I know a lot of people didn't, but as a young kid walking around that area, I did. You know, that felt like Disney to me. And I feel like this land helped me become a roller coaster enthusiast and not just a Disney fan, you know? If California didn't exist and I just grew up going to Disneyland, I might have just grown up to become a Disney adult instead of I'm still kind of a Disney adult, but I'm a Disney adult and a roller coaster enthusiast, you know? And I feel like parks like Cedar Fair parks and Six Flags parks they're just as interesting as Disney parks, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people don't feel that way. I credit that to Paradise Pier. I really miss that music, man. Whenever I go back and I listen to it, it just hits me in the feels, you know? Another pro of Paradise Pier was the coherence. I've already discussed that at length. The fact that it was one whole complete land. It made so much sense, you know? The last pro that I really want to discuss is the kinetic energy of Paradise Pier. Obviously, the scream tubes, or the tubes on Incredicoaster, having those enclosed, that limits the kinetic energy of the land. So I miss having those open so you could watch all the trains and the different colored trains zoom throughout the layout. The fact that the wheel isn't just a traditional Ferris wheel, it's a coaster wheel with rocking gondolas. So even when the wheel isn't spinning, you still see the gondolas swinging back and forth, which really contributes to the kinetic energy of the land since it's literally the centerpiece of the land. So to see something that's always moving is just excellent. Of course, I've discussed the Maliboomer, how it was taller than Emotional Whirlwind, so it could actually contribute to the kinetic energy of the land. And I just miss saying everything together, you know? Golden Zephyr, Jumpin' Jellyfish, Silly Symphony Swings, those are all great, and those are all directly on the water, so it was such a great energy when you were walking through the land, or you were just standing and watching all these rides go at the same time. It's just beautiful. And it's hard to find that at any other park, because there aren't any other parks in the world that have operations as fast as Disney, so they can always have those rides moving. And just having so many rides crammed together in a small space like that is it's pretty unique. Like, a lot of parks have their rides spread out. A lot of parks have the luxury to do that. Obviously Disney and even Knott's Berry Farm, we don't have land here, so we gotta cram everything on top of each other. But you know, if you look at Knott's Berry Farm, where Jaguar, Sierra Sidewinder, Silver Bullet, Montezuma's Revenge, they're all stacked on top of each other, it's not that common to see them all go at once, you know, like you may see one go or two go at the same time. But at Paradise Pier, you always had rides moving. And I really miss that, man. That was the rant of a Paradise Pier fanboy.
It's almost like the Walt Disney Company completely forgot about the existence of Paradise Gardens Park. In 2018, when they split up Paradise Pier into two separate lands, they created Pixar Pier and Paradise Gardens Park. Pixar Pier was the big new thing. It was the reskin of half of Paradise Pier. So the other half of Paradise Pier is just sitting there to this day in its old state. If you know this channel, if you know me at all, you know that I hate Pixar Pier. It's like the bane of my existence. Paradise Pier used to be my favorite part of both parks, of Disneyland and California Adventure. And Pixar Pier was a significant downgrade. If you'd like to talk about Pixar Pier, I already have a review video up on the channel. But in today's video, we're gonna focus on the other half of the pier, which remains as Paradise Gardens Park. It's just really messy that they took one large coherent land and they rethemed half of it, so the other half is just still there. I am very nostalgic for Paradise Pier, and a lot of that includes what's left of Paradise Gardens Park, so part of me is happy that Paradise Pier still exists in some form. I'm a bigger fan of this part of the park than most people, but it still bothers me that it's so messy, you know? But I take more of that frustration out on the existence of Pixar Pier compared to the remains of Paradise Gardens Park. Before we get started, please like this video, please leave a comment down below, let me know what you think of Paradise Gardens Park. What did you think of Paradise Pier? Do you have an opinion on Pixar Pier? I'd love to hear in the comments below. And of course, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. The push for 10,000 subscribers is on, and I am grateful for all of your support. My YouTube analytics says we have 20,000 returning viewers over the last month, and we're nowhere near 20,000 subscribers. So if you've watched more than one video on this channel, please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. So let's dig into Paradise Gardens Park, starting with the rides. This area actually has a lot of rides for a Disney themed area, especially when you consider it's half of a themed area because it used to be the entire pier. Paradise Gardens Park has 5 attractions and a nighttime spectacular. 5 attractions is tied for the lead with Pixar Pier itself for most in the park, so that's just absolutely crazy that Paradise Pier used to have these two lands as a whole, which was one of many reasons why I love Paradise Pier. The first ride in Paradise Gardens Park that you're gonna see when you enter the area is Ariel's Undersea Adventure. This is a really cute dark ride. I'm a big fan of it. I actually have a commentary video of this attraction, so if you haven't watched that, go ahead and check that out, please. The highlight of this attraction is easily the under the sea sequence. It's very cute. I also like that Scuttle bookends the ride experience because it's like he's retelling the story of the Little Mermaid, which might be the rationale for why it's so rushed at the finale. Like once Ariel gets her legs, she's immediately on the boat with Prince Eric, and Sebastian is singing Kiss the Girl, and then they kiss. You see the silhouette of Ursula cursing them in the background, and then boom, they're married, like back to back to back. The pacing in the finale is just breakneck, and in my opinion the first half is just overall much more well themed because you have that whole backwards section going back down under the sea, and you see the Little Mermaid for the first time on the left hand side. Like the second half, the clamshells don't even rotate, like you're just facing inwards for the last 3 scenes, so it feels a lot less immersive. The quality definitely dips after you see that Ursula animatronic, which by the way is really impressive. She's another highlight of the attraction for sure. One thing that is a little silly is that the Ariel animatronics are kind of cross-eyed, which is a little goofy, but you know, it is what it is. Overall, this is an incredible attraction, and it was cloned for Walt Disney World at Magic Kingdom, but that version of the attraction has a much cooler queue, which is very nice. But it's literally the exact same ride. Moving on to the next attraction in Paradise Gardens Park is the first of 2 spinning attractions. It is the Golden Zephyr. I actually love the Golden Zephyr. I am a big fan. I think it's very visually appealing. I might be one of the biggest Golden Zephyr fans out there. I actually have a full review video for this attraction on the channel, which you should check out if you haven't already. It's just so cool. It looks amazing at night with the lights on the wires. Like it kind of looks like a Christmas tree. Those wires holding up those very large ride vehicles is really cool. It gives you some amazing views of the pier and obviously the rest of Paradise Gardens Park. It's a pretty tame and short ride experience, but it's just something to do without that long of a wait. The major downside with the Golden Zephyr is unfortunately that it is very very wind sensitive, so it'll go down in like the smallest breeze. For that reason, I don't think that this attraction could exist in like any other climate other than Southern California or other climates that are just as tame. So that's kind of funny. But overall, it's such a tall structure. It plays a really important part in the skyline of the pier area, which worked better when the whole thing was Paradise Pier. But it still looks really, really cool today. Right next door to the Golden Zephyr is the Jumpin' Jellyfish. I have so many memories riding this attraction as a kid. I was one of those kids who was afraid of like dark rides or rides where I couldn't see what was gonna happen to you. So I loved these attractions in what is now Paradise Gardens Park because I could see everything that was gonna happen. Like I knew the ride experience before I got on the ride. So I'm very nostalgic for Jumpin' Jellyfish, even though the ride experience itself is pretty much just like an outdoor elevator. Like it's very, very tame. You might get some butterflies in your stomach when it's coming back down, but overall nothing that noteworthy. I love riding this attraction when you're facing the water because you have a great view of the fun wheel and the water and the rest of the pier, obviously. So that's a pretty cute spectacle, but only a handful of the jellyfish are facing that way, which is pretty funny. Moving on to only one of 2 roller coasters in this entire park. It is Goofy Sky School. So this is an off-the-shelf Wild Mouse, so it's really not that special on paper, but it does get a decently long wait time. Like more often than not, the wait time for Goofy Sky School is pretty bad, which like I think that just speaks to the demand for roller coasters, and I feel like DCA needs to add at least one, preferably more than one, roller coaster to diversify this ride lineup. That being said though, I am a sucker for the Goofy Sky School theme. I think it's really, really cute. It's very clever. Learning to fly with Goofy, and he's such a klutz that, you know, flying with Goofy feels like a wild mouse. Like that's pretty cute. Like obviously it's not immersive, like it's very stylized, but the paint is kind of faded, so it definitely could use some love in that regard. This might be one of the most cycled wild mouse in the world. Wild mice, whatever. And very similar to Jumpin' Jellyfish and Golden Zephyr, I am nostalgic for this ride. I rode it as Mulholland Madness way back when, and it's kind of cute that it used to be an orange roller coaster and now it's a blue roller coaster. Those are my 2 favorite colors, which is why you see them in my channel's logo. Moving on to the second spinning ride and the final attraction in Paradise Gardens Park is Silly Symphony Swings. Just like Goofy Sky School, this ride is stylized very, very well. It's very cute. The fact that it's themed to a storm, like the Mickey short, the Silly Symphony, you know. The music is pretty loud, like you can hear it all the way on the other side of the Paradise Bay when this ride is cycling. It's so much fun. This attraction is elevated on top of a platform, so you have an amazing view of the water and the rest of the pier, and that just adds a different dynamic to other wave swingers at other theme parks. And I feel like this one is faster, which is really, really fun. This is just one of those cute rides. Like I just love kicking my feet out, feeling those forces, feeling the wind, seeing those amazing views. It's just very, very fun. And I loved how stylized it is. It's a very cute attraction, in my opinion. Plus the minimalist, like wires holding up your chair, can be a little intimidating, which is kind of funny. So those are the 5 rides of Paradise Gardens Park, but there is one other major draw, because Paradise Gardens Park is technically home to the viewing area of California Adventure's Nighttime Spectacular, which is World of Color. As of recent, Disney has been cycling through various iterations of World of Color. Most recently, it has been World of Color 1, which I have a full review video for on the channel if you'd like to check that out. I have very strong opinions on World of Color 1. World of Color Happiness is about to debut in like less than 2 weeks at the time of this recording. And obviously the original World of Color, which is a fantastic show. That's still my favorite version of the show, and I would love to see it come back, assuming World of Color Happiness is not Disney's next masterpiece, but we'll see, I guess. But any version of World of Color is an absolute spectacle. The lights on the fountains are just absolutely breathtaking, and it's 100% something you should do when you visit the Disneyland resort. That being said though, it's nowhere near as good as Fantasmic, and I'm becoming more of a firework person. Like I used to not really care about firework shows, but they've been hooking me in. Part of that is thanks to how good of a show Wondrous Journeys is. That show is absolutely incredible, which I also have a review video for in case you're curious. But anyway, World of Color is 100% worth seeing, especially if you're dedicating one day to doing California Adventure. So that's a pretty impressive ride lineup for a themed land at California Adventure. Once again, it's tied for the most amount of attractions in the park. It has a really solid dark ride with Ariel's Undersea Adventure, and it has one of 2 roller coasters in the park with Goofy Sky School, which I'm a fan of, even though it is not something unique to Disney. You have a breathtaking nighttime spectacular, and you have 3 family-style attractions to bring kinetic energy to the land, which I really, really like. One major aspect of Paradise Gardens Park that we have to talk about is like the food court, kind of back in between Goofy Sky School and the entrance to Pixar Pier, right across from Silly Symphony Swings. There's 2 restaurants in here. One is Paradise Garden Grill, which is pretty good from my memory. And we also have Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta, which I also enjoy. I think the pizza is very similar to the pizza at Alien Pizza Planet, but the pasta is really good. I am a fan of Disney's spaghetti, but obviously since it's food at a Disney park, any of the options are going to be overpriced, so you should just know that going in. I do like the fact that it does have like a food court within the pier area, because DCA also has that food court, basically an entire land, which is now San Fransokyo Square, which is kind of fun. This food court area is used for live entertainment from time to time, and whenever Disney has like a festival, I feel like they have some anchor in this corner of the park because it's pretty generic, so they can kind of like reshape it however they want. It's always this corner of the park and also the Hollywood backlot whenever Disney has a special event or some celebration that they have. Usually they'll have the festivities in this corner of the park or the Hollywood backlot, which is kind of a downside in my opinion because it kind of gives the area like a cheap and temporary atmosphere. Like it's just used to promote whatever Disney wants to promote at any given time, which kind of means a lack of identity within the land itself, because that's a big chunk of Paradise Gardens Park back there. But identity is 100% one of this land's biggest problems, obviously with the fact that it was part of Paradise Pier and now it's all that's left of Paradise Pier when they rethemed half of it to Pixar Pier. It's just so messy that they took a whole land and they cut it in half. So now this area is just kind of off on its own, but the 2 e-tickets in the pier area are both on the side that is now Pixar Pier with Incredicoaster and Toy Story Midway Mania. So now the main draw for guests to Paradise Gardens Park is either Ariel or Goofy Sky School, which are good rides in my opinion, and I have a soft spot for both of them, but they're just not on the same scale in terms of popularity as Toy Story Midway Mania and Incredicoaster, obviously. Like I feel like these collection of 5 rides that they had worked better when they were supported by the collection of rides on the other half Paradise Pier. Now that they're on their own, it's just kind of jumbled and messy because you got Jumpin' Jellyfish and Golden Zephyr, which are just kind of generic California vibe rides. And then you have a dark ride themed to The Little Mermaid. And then you have 2 attractions themed to Mickey and Friends with Goofy Sky School and Silly Symphony Swings. So these 5 rides don't really work well together. And then of course you have a World of Color show, which could be celebrating 70 years of Disneyland Park. It could be celebrating 100 years of the Walt Disney Corporation, or it could just be the classic World of Color show. So it's just like messy, you know? Which is very similar to how Pixar Pier is a mess. Like if I look back at the old Paradise Pier, the side with California Screamin' and Midway Mania was definitely the stronger side. So the fact that the weaker side is just still here is pretty strange to me. But this Paradise Gardens Park is 100% a victim of the terrible decision that was Pixar Pier. And as I said, I really dug into that in my review video for that land. Another aspect that contributes to the lack of identity for Paradise Gardens Park are the hotels. Like the Grand Californian and what is now the Pixar Place Hotel both tower over this section of the park. More so the Grand Californian because it's like right along the border of the park. I've had the opportunity to stay at one of those hotel rooms that has a view of the pier, which is absolutely breathtaking. Like that's an incredible experience, but obviously not something I would do on a regular basis. Like if you're a tourist who's looking for a park view, which hotels with park views are like the big thing these days, you know? Like Fantasy Springs just opened in Tokyo Disneyland and it has a hotel with a view of that themed area. And obviously Epic Universe is opening with a hotel like as part of the park, like it's ingrained into the park as its icon almost, or one of the park's icons, which is very, very interesting. Like that's cool as a hotel guest, But in terms of Paradise Gardens Park, it's a little strange that this is themed to like a boardwalk, but the hotel that's closest to you is themed to the redwoods of California, you know? Because it ties in beautifully with the Grizzly Peak section. I believe when the hotel first opened, it didn't get this close to Paradise Pier, but because it was such a huge success, they added onto the hotel to get it closer to the pier. So this was a problem going back to the Paradise Pier days, where you had a hotel themed to the California redwoods right on the doorstep of a beach boardwalk. So that is a little strange, but from the perspective of a hotel guest, it is really cool once again, because the Grand Californian is an incredible hotel, in my opinion. On the other side of the coin, we have the Pixar Place Hotel, which I have not stayed at. It used to be the Paradise Pier Hotel, which I did have the opportunity to stay at, and it's by far the most generic of the 3 hotels at the Disneyland Resort. But from an in-park perspective, it was way prettier to look at than the Pixar Place Hotel. They totally drained the personality and the aesthetic out of that building, and now it looks ugly. It looks so bad. It looks disgusting. Like, it used to have this like crown on the roof line with waves, which was really, really cool. And now it just has this ugly yellow, blue, and red lighting. The architecture is just bad, in my opinion. Like, it looks naked without the crown with the waves on it. I don't know if there's a better word to describe the waves than crown. I don't know anything about architecture. So it is really a shame that not only is this land half of a land that used to exist, but it's also in the shadow of a hotel that ties into the other half of the land, even though it's much closer to Goofy Sky School, Golden Zephyr, Jumpin' Jellyfish, Silly Symphony Swings, compared to Incredicoaster, Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind, and Toy Story Midway Mania, you know? So there's 2 hotels right next to Paradise Gardens Park, and neither of them are themed to Paradise Gardens Park. It's because Paradise Gardens Park was never supposed to be a thing, you know? Just like how Pixar Pier should have never been a thing. So let's talk about the future of this themed land. Is Disney gonna do something about this, or is it just gonna stay the way that it is for God knows how long? I remember a few years ago there were rumors going around that the rest of Paradise Gardens Park was also going to be rethemed into Pixar Pier, which like I was upset about, because as much as I'm not a fan of the current state of Paradise Gardens Park, I'm a hater of Pixar Pier. So I don't want more of it. In a perfect world, I would delete Pixar Pier, or I guess I would undo it, or bring back the original Paradise Pier, but that's never going to happen. So the much more likely situation would be that the rest of this land becomes part of Pixar Pier. But in my opinion, that would just kind of leave World of Color in no man's land, because World of Color is not a Pixar show. It is a Disney show. Whether that's World of Color 1, World of Color Happiness, World of Color Celebrate, World of Color Season of Light, or the original World of Color, these are not Pixar shows. They might include Pixar characters and Pixar movies, but it's not a Pixar show, period. So it should not be in a Pixar land, you know? Like, I already hated enough that Pixar Pier is the background. I would hate it even more if Pixar Pier was the background and the viewing area for any version of World of Color. You know? When Disney announced the Coco boat ride for California Adventure, there was a good chunk of people, including myself, that assumed that it would be a replacement to Goofy Sky School, kind of wedged in the Paradise Gardens Park section of the park, so it would be an expansion of Pixar Pier. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It looks like the Coco boat ride is going to be right next to Toy Story Midway Mania, on the other side of Incredicoaster, which is really, really cool. I'm really happy that they're going to build something that isn't replacing anything. I mean, they might remove Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind for like queue space for the attraction, but in my opinion that's 100% okay. It's not like Emotional Whirlwind is one of Disney's greatest attractions. Like, it's literally a retheme of Flix Flyers. It's not like this section of the park is lacking spinning rides anyway, because Golden Zephyr and Silly Symphony Swings are literally right next door. You can get rid of Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind and nobody's gonna care. Nobody. So it looks like in the short term, Paradise Gardens Park is not gonna go anywhere. What I do find interesting is that if this Disneyland Forward ball gets rolling, like in motion, which it sounds like it's gonna happen eventually, we just don't know when, the bridge connecting this side of DCA to the potential other side of DCA would be right in between Pixar Pier and Paradise Gardens Park. So maybe when they build that bridge, they're gonna reevaluate Paradise Gardens Park to see what they can do with it. Whether that's leave it as is would be a decision. That would be very interesting. Or maybe they're gonna tie it in with whatever they're gonna build on the other side of the bridge for DCA's expansion plot. Or maybe it'll all just become Pixar Pier. I don't even know what I want, to be honest. Like in my perfect world, they would retheme all of Pixar Pier to Toy Story and just make it Toy Story Pier. I feel like that would have worked so much better than Pixar Pier. The story could have been that Andy got to visit Paradise Pier when he was a kid, so he went home and he built a Paradise Pier for his toys, and now we as Disneyland park guests get to go to that version of Paradise Pier. That would have been so cool. They could have repainted the supports on California Screamin' to look like Connect roller coaster model supports, you know, or like Legos or like Lego equivalent. There could have been so much more creativity poured into this section of the park than what they did, you know? It's so frustrating. It's so bad. And Paradise Gardens Park is definitely a victim of that, not to get too off track. But anyway, if they rethemed Pixar Pier to Toy Story Pier, then they could make the entire pier area, Paradise Gardens Park, could become the rest of Toy Story Pier, you know? Like the Toy Story Land in Disneyland Paris literally has a parachute army man drop ride very similar to Jumpin' Jellyfish, so that's like a shoo-in. But then that leaves the same issue with World of Color, because World of Color would not be a Toy Story show, it's a Disney show, so why would it be in the Toy Story land? Oh my gosh. You know what would have been the best? If they just left it alone. If they left it as Paradise Pier, none of this would have happened. You know, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Everything would have been fine.
San Fransokyo Square is one of the lands of California Adventure, and in today's video we're going to deep dive into everything that this land has to offer. It is mostly a food court, so of course most of this video will be discussing the food offerings, but obviously San Fransokyo Square was a pretty recent change to California Adventure, so we're also going to discuss that as well. Before we get started, please like this video, please leave a comment down below, let me know what you think of San Fransokyo Square. I would love to hear in the comments below, and of course please subscribe to this YouTube channel. At the time of this recording we are pushing for 20,000 subscribers, so I would greatly appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And one more thing, please click the link in the description to give my Instagram account a follow. I would greatly appreciate that as well. Thank you so much everybody. California Adventure opened with Pacific Wharf, and for years and years and years and years it was the park's food court, which is pretty amusing because Disneyland Park doesn't have a land dedicated to just being a food court, but for whatever reason California Adventure just always has since day one, literally. But of course it no longer has that Pacific Wharf California specific theme. It is now San Fransokyo Square, and I think the change from Pacific Wharf to San Fransokyo Square really throws into question the identity of the park of California Adventure. Like, it's crystal clear to everyone it is no longer California Adventure. It's like half California, half Disney IP, Disney stories, you know? For a while, people were thinking that California Adventure was going to be like half Pixar, half Marvel, and then they throw in this Big Hero 6 retheme of the food court, and it's just like, I don't even know what's happening anymore, you know? Like, it's frustrating to me that it's very obviously not California Adventure anymore, and I'm fine with that. Like, this park has had an insane history, various changes. Like, it's okay to step away from California Adventure, but this weird, like, halvesies thing that they've been doing for the last 5-10 years or so is kind of frustrating to me. They're keeping the California aspect because it's San Fransokyo, but, like, the land you had beforehand was literally Northern California. Like, there's buildings that still look like Monterey Bay, but you're throwing that away and bringing in fictional city that is half Californian inspired. And I think that's a great metaphor for California Adventure. It's half California, maybe less than half to be honest, which might be the case for San Fransokyo as well. I was very skeptical when they first announced this change. I thought it was gonna suck, but to be honest, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, so I don't really have a hot take on San Fransokyo other than the music. I hate the music. I think it's very obnoxious, which is really frustrating because a food court is an area that you hang out in for like at least an hour, or like in that time frame, you know? Like, you're gonna be parked for a while. This is where a vast majority of California Adventure guests are going to take their break at some point throughout the day, so it just irks me that the music is so annoying, you know? Like, especially some of the older California Adventure music, like, I love that stuff. I think most of that is nostalgia, but it's so peaceful, so serene, very relaxing. The current music loop is like the exact opposite of that. The biggest thing I was questioning when they made the change to San Fransokyo Square was the new bridge, which of course is themed to San Fransokyo, It's like Japanese inspired Golden Gate Bridge architecture. I was like, that looks ugly when I saw the concept art, but in person it really grew on me. Like, California Adventure doesn't have a main street like Disneyland. It has this curved spine that leads you to the head of the park, which of course is Pixar Pier. And when you're walking up that walkway, I love the reveal of the pier area. It's just see the skyline of the roller coaster and the wheel. And I was like, the bridge is gonna get in the way of that. But honestly, I was completely wrong. I think it adds to the skyline. It's unique enough to look like it should belong in a theme park skyline. So I appreciate it. And you can see it in parts of Paradise Gardens Park and even into Pixar Pier. So I do appreciate that it gave this corner of the park something unique about it visually. And it literally is the same bridge with these two massive columns slapped on top of it. But I think it looks cool, and I love the reflection of the structure down below in that water. It's beautiful. I'm a big fan, and I really wasn't expecting to be. So as for the food court itself, the big mainstay is always been the bread factory. That's like the only thing that's stayed consistent. That's not entirely true. It's one of the main things. It's the attraction that stayed consistent. There used to be a tortilla factory, but that was taken over by Ghirardelli. Ghirardelli is more of a restaurant or a dessert place, I guess. It's not really a restaurant. I love Ghirardelli. I'm a sucker for Ghirardelli. Very overpriced, so it's like once in a blue moon for me. But it's an amazing treat. Love it, love it, love it. I remember one time my family and I went and we tried like this earthquake thing, and it was just a plate that was huge, full of ice cream. It was unreal. It was like a dream for me back then. I think they got rid of it, which is heartbreaking for me, but whatever. I didn't mean to gloss over the bakery. The bread tour is the only attraction in this corner of the park. It is very, very cool. I've always liked it. They used to stop you and make you watch the video and then have you walk through the rest of the bread factory, but now the last few years the doors have just been open, so you can just walk right through the whole thing. You can get a free sample of bread, which is always bomb. Love that stuff. This corner of California Adventure is probably what started my love for sourdough bread. Love sourdough bread. So I blame DCA for that. You can purchase like entire loaves. You can purchase Mickey loaves, which is really cool. That stayed from the transition from Pacific Wharf to San Fransokyo Square. The restaurant that it's attached to is now called Aunt Cass's Cafe. I believe it serves mostly the same food, which is like bread bowl food, obviously. So soups, you can get mac and cheese in a bread bowl. They have a couple sandwiches. Good stuff. Always been a fan. And the other two major restaurants within this food court are Lucky Fortune Cookery and Cocina Cucamonga Mexican Grill. I'm a fan of both. Of the three restaurants that we discussed, I think the Mexican Grill is my favorite. I love those tacos. Very, very good. But you can't go wrong with any of those options. One time, I went to eat at the Lucky Fortune Cookery, and they took an insane amount of time to prepare my mobile order. Like, I checked in multiple times, and I think the whole waiting period was actually an hour. So that was ridiculous, but it happened one time, and it was like a few years ago. So I'm over it, but it was very, very frustrating at the time. But I have not had that experience at any other Disney restaurant since, so it was just a one-off, so I'll give them a pass. So that is my opinion on San Fransokyo Square. I have a very interesting relationship with Cars Land at Disney California Adventure. I've been very fortunate, very blessed. I've grown up going to the Disneyland Resort, and I remember California Adventure going through its whole like $2 billion makeover when Bob Iger invested in this park. Cars Land was like the hot new thing for the longest time. I remember being a little kid and I was so excited to see the land at night for the first time because the neon lights like light up. Every night they do the whole shaboom thing from the first Cars movie as they light the entire land up with those beautiful neon lights. That's very, very cool. It's a very magical moment. But in today's video, we're going to deep dive into this whole land to see what it does well, where I think it falls short just a little bit, and why I think it's just a tad bit overrated. Before we get started, please like this video, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of Cars Land. I would love to hear. I've been going to DCA like my whole life, so let's dig into this themed area. The vast majority of this themed land is Route 66. It's basically like the main street of the land. At the very back of the land is the courthouse, which is basically just a facade, and behind it to the right hand side is the entrance of Radiator Springs Racers. That wraps around and there's a walkway that brings you right next to Willie's Butte, and that connects to San Fransokyo Square. So overall, the land itself is absolutely massive. Radiator Springs Racers on its own is a huge attraction. The rock work for that ride is basically the backdrop for the entire land. It is very beautiful, very well done. But for this video, we're gonna stop by every single store down Route 66, starting with Tow Mater's Junkyard on the left hand side, which is of course Mater's Junkyard Jamboree. This is one of 3 attractions within Cars Land. It is a very fun ride system, so much so that Disney has cloned it for a couple other Disney resorts around the world. This one was the first though. Mater will sing you a song as his tractors pull you around the junkyard. It's very cool how each vehicle like disconnects and reconnects to a different turntable. So it's like a funky figure 8 that has like 4 rings instead of 2. So you can go from one side of the junkyard to the other in one ride cycle. It's so much fun when the ride vehicle whips you to the side. It actually pulls some really fun laterals and it can slam you into the person right next to you. So it's a fun bonding experience. I'm a big fan of this attraction. Something that I should mention is that Cars Land really embraces the holiday seasons. For Halloween, Mater's Junkyard Jamboree becomes Mater's Graveyard Jamboree, and for the holiday season, Junkyard Jamboree becomes Mater's Jingle Jamboree. But really the only thing that changes is the music. For Halloween, it's a Halloween song. For Christmas time, more festive music, of course. The entire land gets decked out for both seasons. Christmas time at the Disneyland Resort is beautiful pretty much everywhere, so I don't give too many points for within Cars Land. But for Halloween, I feel like Cars Land goes all out for that season, more so than most areas of Disneyland. The only thing that I don't like about Halloween within Cars Land is the rock work. Radiator Springs Racers, they make it look green and purple instead of the beautiful orange. I think it looks really ugly and it doesn't really make sense why the rocks are green and purple other than spooky. I definitely prefer the orange lighting. It looks so good. Again, this land is absolutely beautiful at night. But right across from Mater's Junkyard Jamboree is Fillmore's Tastin'. There's not really much to talk about here. It's pretty much just a drink stand, but I do appreciate that they recreated Fillmore's like house from the films. It's a very unique shape, and honestly, you're not missing anything if you just walk right by it. One thing that I forgot to mention is that Cars Land has this big, beautiful sign in front of Fillmore's. They'll change it out for the different seasons. For Christmas time, it'll be like a Christmassy sign. For Halloween, it'll be a Halloweeny sign. For most of the year, it's just a generic Cars Land sign. It's a big photo opportunity within California Adventure. It's right next to that big view of the entire street of Route 66. So I think that is pretty cool. But as you move down Route 66, the next stop we're gonna reach is Sarge's Surplus Hut. Very similar to Fillmore's Tastin'. There's not much to talk about here. It's just a generic Disney gift shop. But again, I really appreciate the building design. Of course, Cars is a huge merchandise driver for Disney, so you gotta have a few gift shops within Cars Land, and this is the first one that we reach. Across from Sarge's Surplus Hut is this big old warehouse. There's no guest-facing purpose for this building. I'm sure it's just storage or maybe office space or whatever. On the outside of it, there are little posters with like little puns, but that's about it. Cars Land is really big on puns, which you will find throughout the entire land, especially as we move next door to the Cozy Cone Motel, which of course is Sally's home, or Sally's place of business, I guess. There are 5 cozy cones. The first one sells churros. The second one sells ice cream cones. The third one sells chili cone queso. At the time of this recording, I don't remember that being a thing. I'm not a big Disney park foodie. I go for the rides. I've documented that pretty well on this channel. I can't tell you the last time I made a stop at Cozy Cone Motel, but this is the full in-depth review. We gotta dig through all of this. Cozy Cone number 4 sells frozen concations. What is that? Let me look at this menu real quick. They have a chimichanga and a bunch of alcoholic beverages. They also have watermelon lemonade, Fillmore's Fuelin' Groovy All Natural Lemonade, interesting, and Fillmore's Fuelin' Groovy Pomegranate Limeade. I don't know why that's at the Cozy Cone and it's not at Fillmore's hut thing. That's interesting. And the final Cozy Cone sells pop cone. So you can get your popcorn at the Cozy Cone Motel. The like management building where Sally spends most of her time in the movie, at least, is a meet and greet. Usually they'll have Lightning McQueen parked out front so you can wait in line to meet him. Not a big characters guy, but it is really cool that they design like the actual characters. Sometimes you'll see Mater driving around. He'll park out front of the Cozy Cone Motel as well. When Cars 3 was released, they had Cruz Ramirez driving him around. I haven't seen her in a while, but I don't know if they're still doing that. I'm a pretty big Ducks fan, and they drafted a dude named McQueen in this last draft. And basically, as soon as they did that, they flew him to Cars Land to get a picture with the real Lightning McQueen in front of the Cozy Cone Motel, so that was really cool. The neon sign for the Cozy Cone Motel looks really good as well, and there's also like that cone water fountain thing that I really appreciate. That's also in the movie. Big fan of water fountains. They bring such a nice energy to the land. And I could watch that little cone spin around, or that like Ferris wheel of cones spin around forever and ever. Right next door to the Cozy Cone Motel is the second gift shop we're talking about. It's called Radiator Springs Curios. This is Lizzie's store from the movies, so that's pretty interesting. But again, just another Disney gift shop so they can sell Cars merch to you. Not much to talk about. Right across from this store and the Cozy Cone Motel is one of the big restaurants, I guess the biggest restaurant within Cars Land. It is Flo's V8 Cafe. I used to be a huge fan of this place. I think it's really fallen off. I don't know if my taste buds just adjusted, but I truly remember this being one of my favorite places to eat as a kid. And now it's very forgettable. You can get Flo's famous fried chicken, race day salad, a pastrami sandwich, a cheeseburger, like ka-chow, but cheeseburger. That's hilarious. For $14, by the way. And of course they have kids meals, desserts. That's about it. The theming is pretty cool though, how like the outdoor seated section is themed to Flo's gas station. There's a patio in the back which also has a pretty nice view of Radiator Springs Bracers and Willie's Butte. There's a big indoor seated section as well. Doc's building is connected to Flo's V8 Cafe and it's just a seating area. Disrespecting a dead character. That's great. But Flo's V8 Cafe is pretty forgettable in my opinion. How the mighty have fallen. Right next door to Flo's V8 Cafe is Ramon's House of Body Art. Very interesting. You're never gonna guess what this is. It's another gift shop. Yay. This is pretty much the closest thing to the exit gift shop for Radiator Springs Racers. So there's that. Again, not much to talk about. Right across from Ramon's is the second attraction in Cars Land. It is Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters. This opened as Luigi's Flying Tires with the land in 2012. That was a huge disaster. Nobody liked it. It unceremoniously closed in 2015, and it was replaced by a trackless attraction, Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters. Unfortunately, this is the only trackless attraction within California Adventure. It is not a dark ride, it's just a spinny attraction. It can be a lot of fun. It is a big dance. I think it uses the ride system pretty well, but it does have a strange setup because it literally replaced a weird tire ride. So a lot of the queue is the same, the staging areas are the same, so when you're waiting, I don't know, it's built really weird. But the ride itself doesn't really have a problem. It's perfectly fun for what it is. Like last year or 2 years ago, they built this humongous office building behind it and they themed it to Cars Land. I don't know. I'm not really a fan of that. But very similar to Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters has a couple seasonal overlays, quote-unquote overlays. Again, they're very easy. It's basically just the music changing. Maybe a couple of small decorations, but again, you can find small decorations for the holiday seasons all around the entire resort, so nothing special for Luigi's or for Mater's. But I'm recording this video on December 4th, and it is currently operating as Luigi's Joy to the Whirl. Again, Cars Land loves their puns.
And of course, during Halloween time, this attraction is called Luigi's Hunkin' Hall-O-Ween. Hall spelled H-A-U-L, O-Ween. So funny, so funny. Also, across from the exit to Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters is Red's Community Garden. They also have a Red animatronic. I forgot about him. He comes out from time to time. The garden is literally just seating for the Cozy Cone Motel, so not really anything to discuss. But again, I still appreciate that Cars Land assigns something to all of the major characters within Radiator Springs. I really appreciate that. Of course, in the back of the land is what all of you have been waiting for. It is Radiator Springs Racer. I have a full review video for this attraction. If you're watching this video right now, you probably already know that I think this ride is incredibly overrated. So that's the major reason why I think Cars Land is overrated as a whole. It is very well themed. I think it works really well as a whole, especially at night, not during the Halloween season, again, because the lighting in Halloween on the back rock work is so ugly. But when it's just the traditional orange, it looks breathtaking. The Willie's Butte reveal, if you walk into the land from San Fransokyo, that is a jaw-dropping moment. It is so beautiful, and nothing I say about Cars Land can take that away from it. The rock work for Radiator Springs Racers is by far the best thing about it, and the whole land gets to enjoy the rock work, not just the riders themselves. So that's a big contribution that Radiator Springs Racers makes to the land as a whole. It's literally in the entire backdrop. But I'm still not impressed with the ride experience. I think it's weird that there's 3 across seating. It's great for single riders, which is the only way I will ever ride this attraction. I am not going to wait 95 minutes for it, which is the posted wait time at the time of this recording. The queue is absolutely insufferable. The music can be really grating and annoying in my opinion. The animatronics aren't great. I've talked about the 2 Maters. I think that's really bad that there's 2 Mater animatronics. You drive by the first one, he's talking to you, he goes behind some bushes, you can obviously see that he stops, you pull forward and there's another Mater. Like, that's just really poorly done storytelling in my opinion. And before that, Sheriff will stop you because you're speeding, and then you'll see the first Mater talking to the first car in front of you, and then you'll pull up, and then Mater will race right back out of those bushes to greet you. So, not great, in my opinion. I'm an introvert. I don't really care for the final race at the end. I also don't really like that major chunk of the dark ride sequence is going down Route 66, which the entire land is themed to. Like, that's so bizarre. When you go ride the Haunted Mansion, there isn't a scene dedicated to New Orleans. When you ride Pirates of the Caribbean, there isn't a scene dedicated to New Orleans. When you ride Indiana Jones Adventure, you're racing through a cursed jungle temple. You're not racing through Adventureland. So it's so bizarre that you go down Route 66 even though the land is Route 66. I never liked that. I think it's really weird. That's just my opinion, I guess. The ride experience is incredibly overrated, and if you agree with me, you would never ride it unless the single rider line is like 20 minutes or less. Cars Land was one of the first like immersive lands that Disney ever took a crack at. It opened in 2012. This was like their first response to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which opened at Islands of Adventure 2 years earlier in 2010. That land absolutely redefined what the theme park wars were about. This current push for immersion is all because of Hogwarts and the Wizarding World. I'd like to make a video discussing that. I don't even know if theme park guests want immersion, but it's what we're getting these days, all because of that land at Universal Orlando Resort. Overall, I think Cars Land is very well done. When I ranked the lands at DCA, it was number 1, but that doesn't mean I think it's perfect. I do think it's a tad bit overrated, mostly because I'm probably Radiator Springs Racer's biggest hater, but it still does many things really well. As a kid, I was always a Toy Story person. Loved Toy Story, loved Woody and Buzz. I wasn't as big on Lightning McQueen and Cars. I mean, I loved them, obviously. I'm a 2000s kid, loved Pixar movies. I feel like my sister always liked Cars more than I did. Again, I was fully on board with Toy Story. So when Disney's Hollywood Studios opened Toy Story Land in 2018, I had a blast exploring Toy Story Land. I love Toy Story Land, and I'm gonna say something really controversial. I prefer Toy Story Land at Disney's Hollywood Studios to Cars Land at Disney California Adventure. But that is just my opinion based on my personal preferences. I understand that Cars Land is much larger scale. I understand that Radiator Springs Racers is a much more impressive backdrop for the land than Slinky Dog Dash is. If you also know me, you know that I love roller coasters, and guess what Slinky Dog Dash is? It's a roller coaster. So just a little part of me wishes I got to grow up with Toy Story Land at California Adventure instead of Cars Land, but that's just being really greedy, really nitpicky. I still love Cars Land, as I've reiterated multiple times, but people in the comments are still not going to understand that. Shout out to you if you're still watching this video. I also think that Toy Story Land has better rides, and as I have said multiple times, I am a rides guest. That is my priority when I visit theme parks. Alien Swirling Saucers and Mater's Junkyard Jamboree are the exact same ride. Toy Story Midway Mania absolutely destroys Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters. It's a much better ride. You don't even have to go to Disney World to understand that. Just go over to Pixar Pier and take a lap on Toy Story Midway Mania and compare it to Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters. A vast majority of guests are going to prefer the Toy Story ride. I prefer Slinky Dog Dash to Radiator Springs Racers. Grizzly Peak is the most underrated land at any Disney park in the world, and in today's video we're going to dig into why that is. I'm going to explain why this land does everything so well. Before we get started, please like this video, please leave a comment down below, let me know what you think of Grizzly Peak, what do you think of the rides within Grizzly Peak, I would love to hear. And of course, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. At the time of this recording, we're pushing for 20,000 subscribers, so I would greatly appreciate your help to reach that goal. Thank you so much. When California Adventure opened in 2001, the icon for the park was the Grizzly Peak mountain, the grizzly bear, which of course is on our Californian flag. So it makes a lot of sense that the big old grizzly bear that they built would be the icon for the entire park. But as the years have gone on, the icon shifted from the Grizzly Peak bear to Paradise Pier / Pixar Pier Ferris wheel. When they put Mickey's face on the Ferris wheel, that became like an instant icon for California Adventure and the Disneyland Resort as a whole. So much so that when people like do homages to Disneyland or like art drawings of Disneyland without drawing the physical castle, a lot of people will draw the Ferris wheel and the roller coaster behind it because it's a very iconic silhouette. Like, it's just become such a representation of Disneyland Resort and Anaheim, if I'm being completely honest. So why did that happen? Why was the Grizzly Peak pushed to the background? Part of that is because California Adventure has seen a really drastic shift in identity over the years. Obviously, when the park first opened, it was California Adventure, and as I explained, it made a lot of sense why the grizzly bear would be the park's icon, if that's literally on the state flag. But these days, California Adventure is basically just a little bit of California, a little bit of Marvel, a little bit of Pixar, a little bit of Big Hero 6. It's kind of a mixed bag right now, and every single aspect of that mixed bag can be represented by Mickey Mouse because Mickey Mouse is Disney, which is why Mickey Mouse on the wheel is used as the park's icon. It better represents the park now than Grizzly Peak would. Another reason for that is if you go back and look at footage from the opening years of California Adventure, the trees were so much shorter and you could see Grizzly Peak from pretty much anywhere. But over the years, those trees have really grown in and it's really hidden the bear, which I think is an amazing thing. It looks so much more pretty now. So you can only see the mountain from a few select angles within California Adventure, and I think that makes the peak much more mysterious. It's very cool. You have a great view from it on the Grizzly River Run raft ride, which of course is what the Grizzly Peak mountain is. It is the raft ride. Speaking of which, it's time to talk about the rides within Grizzly Peak. Grizzly River Run is so much freaking fun. It's one of my best friend's favorite rides within the Disneyland Resort. Spinning around to seeing who gets splashed is such a fun game of like Russian roulette. Pure fun. This is easily my favorite raft ride I've ever done. It has 2 drops. The second one has a viewing area because it's so cool. You literally spin so much as you go down it. It's pure fun. The geysers at the very end could get you absolutely soaked. It's such a fun splash. Not to take anything away from the first drop, but it is much smaller than the second drop, and it's much more secluded as well. You go right underneath the waterfalls, which you have a great view of from the other side of the mountain, right in front of Avengers Campus. It's a beautiful view of cascading waterfalls and the backside of the Grizzly Bear. I love watching those waterfalls go down. But Grizzly River Run as a ride is just pure fun. I love riding this thing at night in the winter time. It's just such a great experience. I think that this ride is better than Radiator Springs Racers within Cars Land, but that is just my opinion. Unlike Cars Land, Grizzly Peak only has 2 attractions, or 2 rides, I should say. The other ride was California Adventure's savior in 2001. It is Soarin'. So of course, this ride opened as Soarin' over California. In 2016, they introduced Soarin' around the world, and then in 2019, they started bringing back Soarin' over California as a temporary overlay, which they've been doing since. And at the time of this recording, Disney recently announced that they are introducing a new ride film called Soarin' Across America. So now there will be 3 versions of this attraction. I'm very excited for Soarin' Across America. I think it could be a lot of fun. I'm pretty interested to see how they're gonna handle having 3 different ride films. Because for a long time I thought, why don't you just play Soarin' Around the World in one of the theaters and Soarin' Over California in the other theater, because there's 2 different theaters for Soarin'. But honestly, I like the idea of having Soarin' Over California as an overlay instead of playing both at the same time. I feel like that makes it much more special. They bring it back for Food and Wine every year. It makes it feel like an event. I've always preferred Soarin' Around the World. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but the visuals are so much more crisp. I love the transitions, and the music is just as strong. The music for both versions is absolutely incredible. I love, love, love the Soarin' music. It absolutely fits the ride experience like a glove. Soarin' was a very influential attraction, and it's very, very unique. It is an e-ticket that is like soothing and relaxing. It's hard to find that pretty much anywhere, and the music is what really drives it home to make it an elite ride. Of course, this ride isn't perfect. It does have some flaws. If you don't sit in the center, I think gate B, the screen is gonna warp and twist because it is curved, so that is a big shame. And if you don't sit in the top row, you're gonna be looking through people's feet, which is kind of a bummer. I don't mind it as much as a lot of people do. I think it's fine to see people's feet on a hang gliding attraction because you're hang gliding. There's so many iconic smells within this simulator. The oranges and the pine from the Over California ride film are so popular. I personally prefer the Fiji and the jasmine smells from Soarin' Around the World. I'm excited to see what smells Soarin' Across America is gonna have. I'm also excited to see what locations will be there. I think the Grand Canyon is an absolute slam dunk. Probably something from New York City. Maybe like New Orleans, Mount Rushmore, Hawaii, Alaska, who knows. I'm very, very excited to experience that. I need to start working on review videos for Soarin'. There's gonna be 3 ride films and 0 videos, so I need to get on that when Soarin' Across America opens up. So those are the 2 rides of Grizzly Peak, and they are so, so good. I love both of them. They're absolutely incredible. There is another attraction within the land. It's pretty much a play area. It's called Redwood Creek Challenge Trail. I absolutely loved it as a kid. There's like different ropes courses. It's very secluded, very naturey. It's beautiful back there. They had like a rock wall to play on. They had a tire swing, which was so fun. There is an age limit on it, unfortunately. But I absolutely love that thing as a kid. There's different slides. There's so much to do. There's like a little cave. There's little rivers with like little different splash pads to play on. So very, very beautiful kids play area in my opinion. It's probably the best one out there. And it gets really overlooked. Nobody ever talks about Redwood Creek Challenge Trail. They also have like different like adventure games with the Up franchise. That's very cool as well. Something I forgot to talk about with Grizzly River Run is in front of the attraction they have this big old grizzly bear statue, which is so fun. He's got like a little life jacket on. He's holding an oar. That's so adorable. For Christmas time they put a Christmas sweater around him, so very, very cute. One major aspect of Grizzly Peak that we have to talk about is the Grand Californian Hotel. It is pretty much the Grizzly Peak Hotel, and it overlooks a good chunk of the land. The hotel itself is absolutely beautiful. It is by far the best one at the Disneyland Resort. I've had the fortunate opportunity to stay there before. and you have your own private entrance into the park through Grizzly Peak, so that's so beautiful. Whenever people talk about the future of California Adventure and the possibility of removing or retheming Grizzly Peak is thrown out there, I think it's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that's ever gonna happen because of the hotel. The Grand Californian and Grizzly Peak fit together so perfectly. It would be an absolute disaster if they changed Grizzly Peak or if they changed the hotel without changing the other. Like, I threw a tantrum when they changed Pixar Pier and then they left the Paradise Pier Hotel for years and years and years. They finally changed it over to the Pixar Place Hotel like last year, even though the pier has been around for 6 years, but that's a completely different discussion. I would absolutely lose my marbles if they did the same thing, but with the Grand Californian Hotel, which, by the way, is infinitely better than the Paradise Pier Hotel ever was. It's so cool that the Grand Californian Hotel offers park views both for Grizzly Peak and over by Paradise Gardens Park and Pixar Pier. That's so cool. And the private entrance into Grizzly Peak is just so cool. I love it, love it, love it. The pool area is literally on the other side of a wall from Redwood Creek Challenge Trail, so it feels very integrated into the park, and the energy is just very well done. Also, one thing that I didn't mention is that the monorail cuts right in front of Soarin, and it'll go right through the Grand Californian Hotel, which is really cool. I really like how the Soarin show building is built like a hangar, and I really appreciate the green and gold color scheme that it has these days, as opposed to the yellow and red color scheme that it opened with in 2001. I thought that was really ugly. Speaking of Soarin, right in front of it is the land's only restaurant, Smoke Jumper's Grill. I am not a fan of Smoke Jumper's Grill at all. I think food is by far the worst thing that Grizzly Peak has to offer. You should not be eating in Grizzly Peak, in my opinion. Smoke Jumper's Grill is just the cheeseburger restaurant within California Adventure. If we go through this menu real quick, you can get a double cheeseburger, a spicy chicken sandwich, a grilled chicken sandwich, chicken tenders, a barbecue bacon double cheeseburger. Like, this sounds like I'm reading like the Wendy's menu or something. Like, there's nothing special about it, and I highly discourage you from eating at Smoke Jumper's Grill unless you want cheeseburgers and chicken tenders or whatever, but there's that. So that is one area that Grizzly Peak can absolutely improve in. Right across from Soarin and Smoke Jumper's Grill is a gift shop. It is called Humphrey's Service and Supplies. Nothing notable about it. It's just a quaint little gift shop. Right next to it is a restroom. I also appreciate that right in front of Soarin is like a watchtower. I think that's really cool. There's a sign that says Grizzly Peak Airfield. I love that because that ties in Grizzly Peak to Soarin. As you make your way down the walkway, there's like a parked airplane. Sometimes they have a meet and greet in front of it. Usually I feel like it's Pluto, which is very cute. They also have this big like tourism billboard with the Grizzly Peak plastered on it, and it looks so good. Love it, love it, love it. I think a lot of people don't appreciate Grizzly Peak because the theming is pretty much just trees, but honestly that works so well. Trees and water are theming, in my opinion. California Adventure is a theme park, and what does every park have? Trees and water. Beautiful landscaping. That's what Grizzly Peak is. And I feel like that the energy that those trees and the kinetic energy from the rafts of Grizzly River Run really contribute to a fantastic atmosphere that I am a huge fan of. Walking around Grizzly Peak is just a magical experience. Honestly, I think it is my favorite land to walk around within California Adventure. From Soarin all the way out to Ariel's Undersea Adventure at the beginning of Paradise Gardens Park, it's just absolutely beautiful. During Christmas time, they put like lights up in the trees, so it's just so well done. For Halloween and Oogie Boogie Bash, they transform Redwood Creek Challenge Trail into like a walkthrough experience. It's not a maze, there's not any scare actors, but it's just like, I guess it's a Halloween light show is the best way I could describe it. It's very bizarre. If Disney ever were to do a haunted house maze type of thing, it would be within Redwood Creek Challenge Trail, and the Villains Grove thing is the closest they've ever gotten to doing anything like that. That's kind of funny. But I'm an absolutely huge fan of Grizzly Peak, and I think it is incredibly underrated. When I ranked the themed lands within California Adventure, I ranked Grizzly Peak number 2. It is so good, so underrated. Absolutely love walking around Grizzly Peak, and I think it deserves more love.
Hollywoodland might be one of Disney's cheapest and laziest themed areas they've ever designed. Obviously, this was part of California Adventure since the beginning, and it still exists almost 25 years later. So in today's video, we're going to dig into all things Hollywoodland and why I think it falls flat. Before we get started, please like this video. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of Hollywoodland, the attractions there, the food there, the atmosphere of Hollywoodland. I would love to know. And of course, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. We have over 20,000 returning viewers every single month, but we are nowhere near 20,000 subscribers. So if you've watched more than one video, I would greatly appreciate your support. Please subscribe. Thank you, everyone. In terms of attractions, there's really only one major ride in Hollywoodland. Obviously, that was the case when the park first opened in 2001. It was actually the same ride. It originally opened as Superstar Limo, but because that ride was such a disaster, it was rethemed to Monsters, Inc. And because California Adventure as a whole was a disaster in 2001, in 2004 they opened Tower of Terror, which of course was within Hollywoodland. In 2017, that attraction reopened as Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, and then eventually in 2021, the rest of Avengers Campus was built. So obviously that e-ticket was reallocated to Avengers Campus, so it's no longer part of Hollywoodland. If Tower of Terror was still around, that would definitely be the headlining attraction of Hollywoodland, but these days it doesn't really have that. It just has this Monsters Inc. dark ride, which was originally themed to like paparazzi. Honestly, I'm a little surprised this area of the park never got a rock and roller coaster clone. Like, DCA as a whole definitely needs more roller coasters. Right now the park only has 2, one of which is Goofy Sky School, which on paper is a very unimpressive ride. That ride pulls wait times. I've talked about this a couple times on the channel. Goofy Sky School is regularly within the 30 to 40 minute range, and it can flow up as high as 60 minutes for a freaking wild mouth. So the demand for roller coasters exists within California Adventure. So this park could definitely do something about that going forward. We'll see if that ever actually happens though. But in terms of what is at Hollywoodland, I'm not a fan of Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue. I think it's one of Disney's weakest dark rides. First of all, the queue is pretty ugly, especially the outdoor queue. Like, you have the monorail track going right above it, which is pretty cool. But it's themed to like sets, kind of similar to Star Tours at Hollywood Studios. I don't really like that. Like, I don't like the halvesies thing that these studio parks do. It's like, are you an immersive attraction or are you not, you know? Like, what's with the mural of Monsters Inc. doors outside, and then you walk through the facade and turn the corner and it's just sound stages. You step inside the sound stage and you're within the Monsters like transit authority, like you're in line for a bus or something. You're actually in line for a taxi. The ride vehicles are themed to taxis. And once you start the ride experience, you go down like this weird dark hallway looking at one of the tiny screens on the left hand side, and it's explaining the story of Monsters Inc., how Boo is on the loose. So the attraction does retell the story of the movie, and in my opinion, a lot of Disney's weaker dark rides just retell the story of the movie instead of telling their own story. But you know, it's fine. This first scene might actually be my favorite in the entire ride. You see Mike Wazowski in the car with Celia, and then you're roaming through the streets of Monstropolis. You see that news report that you saw on the video screen, which is kind of funny. Some of the eyes in the windows are pretty cool. And then you see a Sully animatronic. The Sully animatronics are pretty cool. They're probably the best on the ride. Then you go to the restaurant from the movie, and like sheer chaos is happening because Boo is still on the loose. Celia is upset because she thinks that Mike stood her up. And then Mike is running away with Sully to hide Boo. So as you can tell, it's just running through the movie. Like, I love the movie, but I don't know, the visuals aren't great, especially for Disney standards. Speaking of not great visuals, in the next scene you're gonna get blinded, which is not cool. That's an unpleasant effect. I don't like that. I also don't like how a lot of these CDA figures are just reskins of the celebrity animatronics from the original Superstar Limo. That's kind of unsettling in my opinion. Not a fan of that. And these figures on the right hand side are so small. Like, they look tiny. And then the bathroom scene is like comedic, but again, it's so small scale. This Pepper's ghost effect with Randall is not ideal. Like, it doesn't look the best. And then you're gonna be on the scare floor, floor. And again, like the scare floor in the movie is a huge room. For the attraction in Hollywood Studios, it's going to be a huge room. For this ride, it's so small, it's tiny. And you just see one Randall animatronic with one door, and the doors on the ceiling are very obviously small. Which is the same for this scene right here. Like they use a lot of mirrors to make it look like it's way larger than it actually is. It's like, that's smart, but I don't know. The doors are obviously small. The forced perspective is not great in my opinion. And the ride is gonna wrap up with Boo batting Randall like she did in the movie. And then Mike and Sully bring her back to her door. The like post show is the CDA like screening us, decontaminating us or whatever. And then probably the best part of the ride is the Roz animatronic. Like Roz will call out some of the people within the ride vehicle. Probably the most impressive figure on the entire attraction. Like Roz has more range of motion compared to all the Sully animatronics, and Roz is probably the largest as well, so that's pretty cool. But outside of that, it's just an underwhelming ride in my opinion. And Monsters Inc. has nothing to do with Hollywood Land. Like it is a movie and it retells the story of the movie, so I guess there's that, but I don't know. And then you exit the attraction and you have a backside view of the facade, and it's just like gross, you know? Like, why does it look so ugly? In terms of other attractions outside of rides, you have PhilharMagic, which is the replacement for like the Frozen sing-along, which was a replacement for Muppet Vision. So I know a lot of people miss Muppet Vision. PhilharMagic was very much a one and done. I think they only brought it in for capacity's sake. I've never seen a crowd near PhilharMagic at DCA. Like, it's a cute animated film, but the animation is very obviously outdated. But it does have a cute little practical effect at the end of the show with the Donald Duck animatronic, so it's not like an impressive figure. It's definitely not worth seeing if you have a limited amount of time at California Adventure. But if you need a break from the AC, then it is something to do. Speaking about breaks in the AC, one of my favorite things to do is Animation Academy. There's a lot going on within the Animation Academy. They have closed chunks of it, so it's not as large scale and complete as it used to be. There's an Anna and Elsa meet and greet, which I never do because I don't care for meet and greets. There's this like class that you can take where a Disney animator will teach you how to draw a character and you get to draw along with them. So that's really cool. I've done that a lot over the years. They have all the different characters and the times posted, so if you want to learn how to draw a specific character, I'll just show up at the posted time. Like one of my favorite ones I've ever drew was Groot, so that's fun. Like they have all types of characters from the Disney Empire, so it's very fun. That room with all the screens is like the main like courtyard area for Animation Academy. And it is visually impressive. It cycles through different animated movies. It plays music and shows like different stages of the animation process. So that's pretty cool. And the other great thing about Animation Academy is Turtle Talk with Crush. I know for me, the show used to pop up on my feed all the time with like viral clips because the interactions between guests and the Crush actor can be really, really funny. Like Crush will ask, oh, what's your favorite type of food? And the guest will be like, oh, turtle soup. And then, you know, it's just comedy gold from there. Obviously, Animation Academy as a whole, and specifically Turtle Talk with Crush, are aimed at kids. I think any age group can find enjoyment from Turtle Talk with Crush. It's very entertaining. So Animation Academy is probably my favorite part of Hollywoodland. Honestly, Sunset Boulevard as a whole is beautiful. One more attraction I have to mention that's not a ride is Disney Junior Live on Stage. I went in there a lot as a kid. I've not been in there in years, but I'm glad it's there for the kids. Also, I almost forgot, the Hyperion Theater at the end of Sunset Boulevard is an absolutely massive structure. It is humongous. When the park first opened, they were playing the Aladdin show in there, and then eventually it became Frozen, and then once Frozen was done, they've just used it for like special events. Like they had that Rogers the Musical there for like one summer. I know they used it for the movie premiere of the Haunted Mansion movie a couple years ago. Other than that, it's just been sitting there since Frozen retired. Like it's just a massive abandoned building, which is not ideal. Like that's an absolutely massive theater, and right now it's just wasted space. So that's definitely one of my biggest criticisms of Hollywoodland. A lot of the sound stages in the backlot are also just wasted wasted space. Like stage 17 was redesigned as a massive Avengers store while they were constructing Avengers Campus so they could sell merch to you before the themed land ever opened. But since Avengers Campus closed, it's been empty again. So in terms of attractions, the only ride is Monsters Inc. And in my opinion, it's one of the worst rides. And then the other attractions within Hollywoodland are more of like activities, like they're bonuses. They're not something that you should go out of your way to experience. Like I said, they're good like breaks to have during your park day. So that is a very underwhelming attraction lineup. In terms of food, the options within Hollywoodland are pretty limited. You have award wieners, which I tried for like the first time in years, not too long ago. I'm not a big hot dog guy. The one I had was a chili dog, and it had a lot of bread. It was very filling. A lot of bread. So, you know, it's fine. Not my favorite food from Disney. The Hollywood Lounge sells alcohol mostly, and then Studio Catering Company has like a seasonal menu, so that's another fine option. And on top of that, you have Smoozies. Smoozies? I don't even know how to say it. This is probably the most overpriced and underwhelming smoothie I've ever had in my life. It did not taste good, so I don't recommend Smoozies. Nothing to go out of your way for in terms of food within Hollywoodland. My biggest problem with Hollywoodland is the divide between Sunset Boulevard and the Hollywood backlot. The backlot, in my opinion, is the ugliest section of any Disney park I've ever been to. It's bad. Like, Disney uses the backlot for lots of seasonal events, so I guess that's cool, but again, it's like the ugliest section of the park, and because you use it for so many seasonal events, it's lacking identity of its own. It just exists there to exist, you know? It's not great at all. It feels like a lot of wasted space, again, because of the abandoned property with Stage 17, Stage 12, and the Hyperion Theater, which is not a part of the backlot, but still. And then it has one of my least favorite Disney attractions ever, with Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the rescue. Honestly, you could delete the whole backlot. I wouldn't even bat an eye at it. I barely go back there as it is. Like, I think walking through Sunset Boulevard is very pleasant, but walking back there is it's a completely different vibe. It's very ugly, and it's not worth your time. So at its peak, Hollywoodland is just a nice land to walk through. And if you need a break while you're in the area, the Animation Academy or PhilharMagic can provide that for you. Again, the peak of Hollywoodland is just break land, you know? So that's really disappointing. It does take up a good chunk of the park. At first, I assumed that they were going to expand Avengers Campus into Hollywoodland, especially because when Mission Breakout first opened in 2017, they had their whole Summer of Heroes event, and they put a lot of that celebration within Hollywoodland, so it was like a glimpse into the future. But obviously, Avengers Campus took the land, a Bugs Land, and the expansion for Avengers Campus is going in between Cars Land and Mission Breakout, which, like, that's cool because that's a physical expansion of the park. It's not going to replace anything, but in my opinion, Hollywoodland still needs to be replaced because it's one of Disney's lowest quality lands. Obviously, Avatar has been connected to California Adventure for the longest time, and it's my understanding that most people believe that Avatar is going to come as a replacement to Hollywoodland, and that would be an unreal upgrade. That would be incredible, because Pandora, the World of Avatar at Animal Kingdom, is one of my favorite themed lands I've ever been to, and Hollywoodland might be one of the worst, at least in terms of Disney parks. Alright, so of course, right after I finished recording this video, Disney makes an announcement that would have completely redefined everything that I talked about. Instead of re-recording the whole video, I'm just gonna add onto it to talk about the future of Hollywoodland, because I think everything that I said is still true, even in the context of the closure of Monsters Inc., Mike and Sully to the Rescue, and apparently portions of the Hollywood backlot, which is a really weird announcement, but we're gonna dig into that later. So yeah, Mike and Sully to the Rescue is closing. I don't really know what to say other than good riddance. You know, like I discussed, I'm not a fan of the ride. I think it's pretty low quality. There's been an interesting amount of people that are upset that it's closing, but like, I'm not one of them, and I don't really understand why. Because Hollywood Studios is getting a whole themed land to Monsters Inc., including a whole roller coaster, which is going to be infinitely better than Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue. Who knows, maybe they'll relocate Mike and Sully to the
the rescue and put it in the building that Muppet Vision used to be in, you know? I don't think this attraction is high enough quality warrant being relocated. It's just not great, you know? It's probably the worst Monsters Inc. ride Disney ever created, especially when you consider that there's a Monsters Inc. ride in Tokyo Disney, which looks way, way better, way cooler. But we're getting completely off topic, so not gonna miss the ride. That's the bottom line. So to get some clarity on this announcement that Disney made, we're gonna fire up Google Earth. This is a wide shot of everything. So to clarify, the yellow is existing cast member parking. If you notice, there's a little arm sticking out closer to the park. That's a hotel that Disney purchased and demolished. It is currently being used as extended parking. That is a cast member lot, as far as I know. In the pink is the existing transportation hub for the east side of the resort. That is where Toy Story parking gets dropped off. And then in the blue is the existing Hollywood land as it stands today. So this is what Disney wants to do in terms of parking. They're going to take the existing cast member lot and they're going to transform it into a new parking structure, and they're going to relocate the transportation hub from the park side of Harbor Boulevard to the other side of Harbor Boulevard. So it'll be right next to the new parking structure. I've seen a lot of confusion on the internet as to what the new parking structure's purpose is. For some reason, some people think that it's going to replace the Pixar Palace parking, which is absolutely not the case. They literally just built that. This parking is going to replace what is eventually going to become Disneyland Forward. So the downtown Disney lot and the lot by the Pixar Place Hotel. I think that's called Simba parking, if I remember correctly. So all of those spots are going to disappear if Disney's plans come to fruition. So this massive new parking structure on the east side is going to replace those parking spots. I'm also pretty sure that it's going to replace the Toy Story lot, because if you think about it, if this east side project happens, if this is what the final product looks like, if you park in Toy Story, you're going to park there, you're going to hop on a shuttle, you'll take the shuttle to the transportation hub on the wrong side of Harbor Boulevard, and then you'll have to walk across the bridge. That would just be way too much of a headache, way too much of a hassle. Nobody would ever want to park in the Toy Story parking. And also, if you look back to Disney's announcements when they first pitched Disneyland Forward, their plan was to transform the Toy Story parking lot into like a Disney Springs for the Disneyland Resort. That is the project that we've heard the least about, so a lot of people assume that it got cut or canceled. What else would you do with the Toy Story lot? Because this would be the new east side parking that everyone would go to. So why would they keep the Toy Story lot? It doesn't really make any sense. So I'm assuming that transforming that plot of land is still in the long-term plans, but it's probably lower priority. But who knows? Maybe they'll start working on that once this parking structure opens up. One final note on parking before we start talking about the exciting stuff is that I really, really hope that this new parking structure has easy access to the 5. That's the great thing about the Mickey and Friends parking structure. It's very easy to get from the parking structure to the 5. It's less easy when you're arriving, but leaving is so simple. So I really appreciate that, because leaving Disneyland on its own is such a hassle. Obviously, you have to walk from whatever your last ride is all the way out the main entrance. Then you have to hop on the tram. I have a whole video about the tram complaining about it. You have to deal with all the driver shenanigans who refuse to drop you off right next to the escalators. And you have to walk to the escalators after you drove right by them. And then you have to walk the distance from the escalator to your car, which can often be a substantial amount. So I do appreciate once you're in your car, you can get on the freeway in like 30 seconds. I don't speed, I promise. Please click the ads so I can pay for my speeding ticket. Thank you. Okay. So, back on track. This is what the parking situation is going to look like in the future. This arrow is where that sign, the new Disneyland sign, is going to go, which, by the way, looks amazing. It's way better than the sign that we currently have, which is really small and kind of sad. So I'm happy that we're getting a grand entrance sign for Disneyland. We used to have one, but that was before my day, before DCA. That arrow is also the angle where this concept art was taken, so that's something to keep in mind as these discussions go forward. And then this highlighted green area is where Pandora, the World of Avatar, is going to go. So that is a pretty good chunk of land. Alright, so we're gonna zoom in a little bit and talk about the closer picture. This is the Hollywood backlot. These two arrows are pointing at the buildings that make Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue, so those are definitely gone. These two buildings have been abandoned / unused for years, so there's no way that they're staying. They're definitely gonna go. And then that building back there is... I have no idea what that is. It's probably backstage infrastructure. Maybe it's a cast member break room or something.
But if they're getting rid of that big Monsters Inc. building, there's no way that they're going to keep that one. So all 4 of these buildings are going to be removed so that they can expand into what is currently the East Side Transportation Hub. This building is the Hyperion Theater. The rumor is that this building is going to stay, which is a little frustrating because it's just like the other 2 buildings in the back lot. It has been unused for years and years, but I do understand the logic for wanting to keep the Hyperion Theater. Like, if you remember, a long time ago, Disney was trying to build a theater like the Hyperion for Magic Kingdom, but it fell through. So I was like, there's no way they're gonna go from trying to clone a theater to getting rid of the one in California. Also, like, it's a valuable asset to Disney. Like, they held the Haunted Mansion movie premiere in that building, and it's so high capacity. It seats so many people. So if we're looking at a future where Pandora, the World of Avatar is filled to capacity, it would be very, very helpful if there was a theater right next door to Pandora that could house lots of people on a regular basis. We just need a new show in that building. So I would imagine that Disney's plan would be to debut a new show right before Pandora opens. So if you can't get into Pandora because it's so packed, your consolation prize would be a new show at the Hyperion Theater. And those shows were really popular. Like, it had the Aladdin show and Frozen. I'm forgetting that I'm adding on to a review video. So we already talked about that. This building is currently PhilharMagic. If it was gonna go, I don't know why they wouldn't have announced that along with Mike and Sully to the rescue. So that makes me think that this building is gonna stay, which is very interesting. I don't think it's gonna stay as PhilharMagic though, because if we go back to Hollywood Studios, Disney announced that Muppet Vision 3D will be preserved in some way, but they haven't said what way. And again, just like the Hyperion Theater, this building seats a good amount of people. So if you bring back Muppet Vision, you could provide a consolation prize to guess who can't get into Pandora. It's another theater right on the doorstep of potentially the hottest land in theme park history. It would make a lot of sense to keep this theater. There's no way it's staying as PhilharMagic though, at least in long term. So this arrow is how you enter the building. I imagine that is how it would stay, even if they switched it back into Muppet Vision. But I think they'd have to rework the exit so you exit back into Hollywoodland. Because, once again, everything in green is going to be Pandora, the World of Avatar. And it wouldn't make sense to exit Muppet Vision into Pandora. I think that's pretty manageable, so I feel like it'll happen. In order to make the really drastic transition from Hollywoodland to Pandora work, I think they're gonna have to build out that Hollywoodland facade along that orange line right there. So I don't think you have to change the entrance to PhilharMagic that much. Obviously, you would switch the sign from PhilharMagic to Muppet Vision because Muppet Vision is gonna be more of a draw than PhilharMagic currently is. As I said in this video, PhilharMagic is always empty. You could keep award wieners. There's a gift shop over here, but you would just have to build out the buildings along the current entrances to the Hollywood backlot. They might pull a Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I don't know what the plan is. They might make it look like you're entering a theater, and then you enter the theater and you step into Pandora. That could be interesting. But I think that the entrance to California's Pandora is going to be very similar to how the entrance works for Diagon Alley at Universal Florida. It's pretty much just a wall, and then you walk through the wall, and then boom, you're in a hyper immersive land. So that would be really, really cool. One thing I forgot to mention is that the backside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is so ugly. It's like terrible to look at. I'm not a fan, but it's part of the entrance experience. Like, you're still in your car. It's not the biggest deal in the world. It's just kind of a nitpick. But the thing is, I'm a little concerned that the backside of Pandora is also going to be pretty ugly, and that's going to be very visible from this new pedestrian bridge. So I don't know how that's going to work. I hope they do more work to make the backside of Pandora look nicer than the backside of Galaxy's Edge, but we'll see. And one more thing we got to talk about, which could potentially throw a wrench into all of this, is the monorail path. So what's highlighted in red here is the return path from Disneyland to the Disneyland Hotel, and as you can see, it cuts through the dead center of Pandora. From the concept art, we can see that the monorail is still there. The bridge is going to go over the monorail, so that's not an issue. But I don't know what the plan is for Pandora, because it's going to go right through the center, so that would be a lot of work to hide it. It would look really, really weird. There was just this tube cutting through the center of Pandora. I don't know what the plan is. The concept art made it very clear that the monorail is not going anywhere. It also looks like it's not being rerouted unless they do something like this, because the beginning of the turn is in the concept art. So if it is rerouted, it would have to make a sharp turn to go around the entrance to Pandora and then to reunite existing track. That's just too much. I don't think that's gonna happen. Like, if they were gonna invest the money to reroute it, I don't know why they wouldn't do something like this, where the monorail track would follow the new bridge, and then it would cut right in front of the Esplanade right next to the other monorail track, and then it would just make an S-bend right in between the Grand Californian and Soarin to reunite with the existing track. This would make it completely out of the way of Pandora. It looks like that's not what they're doing, so this is my only concern with all of these plans. Alright, so just to reiterate, this means that Hollywoodland would be made up of the Animation Academy, the Hyperion Theater, Disney Junior Live on Stage, and the building that is currently PhilharMagic. Another piece of evidence for the continuation of PhilharMagic is the fact that Disney announced that portions of the back lot would be converted into Pandora, the World of Avatar, and I think PhilharMagic is considered part of the back lot. I'm assuming that's going to be the only surviving part of the back lot, and again, I think it's going to be converted back into Muppet Vision. I don't know if it would be like a Captain EO run, or if it would be a permanent return. I know all those Muppet fans would hope for the permanent return, but we'll see what Disney does. So to reiterate, Muppet Vision, a new show in the Hyperion, Animation Academy, Disney Junior Live on Stage. Those are 4 shows, 5 if you count 2 in the Animation Academy, and 0 rides. So at that point, I feel like you should just extend Buena Vista Street into Hollywood Boulevard. Just put it all under the same label, Buena Vista Street. Well, Hollywoodland would technically be no more, but the attractions of Hollywoodland would become part of Buena Vista Street. Also, something that I had to cut out of this video was a discussion of the name change from California Adventure to something else, because I was like, if they're adding Pandora to this park, that literally has nothing to do with California. Like, Pixar Pier, San Fransokyo Square, Cars Land, and Avengers Campus really stretch it, and then Pandora is just on a totally different planet. So there's like no connection to California at all. And I was like, at that point, you might as well pull the trigger on a name change. But I don't know if their logic is going to be that Pandora, the World of Avatar, is going to be themed to a movie created in Hollywood and Hollywood, California. That's not great in my opinion. If they open such a fantastical world in this park, they should just abandon the California name. Because really the only 2 lands that are deeply rooted with California are going to be Grizzly Peak and Paradise Gardens Park. Paradise Gardens Park is kind of a mess though, so even then, it's not great. Plus, they're adding Coco right on the doorstep of Paradise Gardens Park, but that's for another video. I've said it on the channel before, but I think they should rename California Adventure to Disney's Adventure Kingdom, because you would keep the adventure identity of the park. I feel like it would honor the legacy of California Adventure, and putting the word kingdom would tie it into 2 of the Florida parks, which are Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom. And of course, Animal Kingdom is the other park with Pandora, so I think that would work really, really well. I love Disney parks that use the word kingdom in the park name. I think Disney's Adventure Kingdom would be a great fit for Disneyland right next door, but that's just my opinion.
This is the final video in a series of videos to review every single land within Disney California Adventure. So right now I'm stuck with Buena Vista Street, and I'm thinking, how do I review this land? Because it's a pretty small land. It's just the entrance area for the park. I think it is very, very, very well done. I've grown up going to DCA, which is why I'm so set on reviewing every single land. I love that park so much. I've seen it change over the years. A lot like myself, I've changed a lot over the years as well. When the park first opened in 2001, the entrance area was called Sunset Plaza. I really loved it as a kid. There were lots of bright colors. The huge California lettering out front was really, really cool. There was a waterfall, or a water fountain, I should say, underneath like a giant sun, and I was obsessed with like watching water fountains, so I just watched the wave go back and forth for like hours. It was really, really cool. They were playing like lots of classic California music. I'm very, very nostalgic for Sunset Plaza. I think it is very, very, very well done. But when Bob Iger came in and realized that California Adventure needed a massive overhaul, they completely dumped Sunset Plaza in place of Buena Vista Street. Buena Vista Street is much more classy. I think it is a much better foil to Main Street right next door. Main Street at Disneyland is probably the greatest entry area of all time, so going with something in a similar vein makes a lot of sense for California Adventure. And theming it to Buena Vista Street because of Snow White, because of Walt Disney, and the premiere that they held at Carthay Circle Theater, that was really, really well done. I think that was a good move, because you tie it into both Disney and the history of Disney and, of course, California, which the park is still named after. I feel like it also ties in with how many movies that they've been incorporating into California Adventure, because, of course, Hollywood is where they make movies for Disney, so that's why. Cars Land is here, Pixar Pier is here, Avengers Campus is here, Hollywood Land is still here. I feel like that all ties in pretty well with Buena Vista Street. It makes sense that you start your day in Buena Vista Street before stepping into Cars Land. I think Pixar itself actually has its studio in Northern California, closer to San Fran. San Fran is still within California, so it works. If you ever ride the monorail, you'll notice that the bridge over California Adventure through Buena Vista Street is still red because it used to be painted as the Golden Gate Bridge when it was Sunshine Plaza. So I think it's kind of funny they never painted or adjusted the inside of it, even though they rethemed the outside of the bridge. And funny enough, these days, California Adventure still has the Golden Gate Bridge out by San Fransokyo Square, which I already have a review video for, because that is a land within California Adventure. Buena Vista Street itself has like pretty much any park amenity you could ever need because it is the entrance area. You got lockers, restrooms, a Starbucks, an ice cream shop, tons of stores. The Carthay Circle Theater itself is the Carthay Circle restaurant within California Adventure. I've eaten there a handful of times. Most recently, I think it was during the Touch of Disney thing because the vast majority of the park was closed, but that was still open, so. Buena Vista Street used to have the red car trolley, but it recently closed because of the construction in Avengers Campus. That also brought a pretty good energy to the land, so it's kind of a shame that it's gone. It would be really cool if they're able to bring that back. I heard a rumor or a suggestion that maybe they'll relocate the red car trolley infrastructure to the front of the park by the main entrance, so that they could resume operation for the red car trolley one day, which would be really, really cool. But honestly, the red car trolley also goes into Hollywood Land. The future of Hollywood Land is kind of in question because of the announcement with Pandora, the World of Avatar, coming to that area. I actually discussed that in my review video for Hollywood Land, so you should check that out if you have not already. But I think that they're still going to keep that main street where the Animation Academy is and where the Hyperion Theater is. So more than likely, I think they'll resurrect the red car trolley if they're able to squeeze in that infrastructure by the main entrance. Maybe right behind the Soarin show building, something like that. Speaking of California Adventure's main entrance, it is pretty much a duplicate of the main entrance for Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World. And I think it is very well done. Very colorful. I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of the lettering. California Adventure is home to lots of festivals or seasonal events. And for like Halloween, for example, they'll smack Oogie Boogie on top of the main entrance. And he's really, really cool. I'm a big fan of that. For the holiday season, they put a big old sign up there that says Festival of the Holidays. For some of their summer events, sometimes they'll put a big design on the California Adventure main entrance. And I think it works really, really well. Speaking of the holidays, Buena Vista Street itself gets totally decked out for Halloween. It's so cool. It's very purple. A buddy of mine recently pointed out that they make Buena Vista Street so like very purple, very dark for Halloween. Main Street over at Disneyland is much more orange, and those are like the two main Halloween colors. So Disneyland is orange, California Adventures Buena Vista Street is purple. So I thought that was a really cool observation. I never put that together. Of course, Buena Vista Street also looks amazing. During the Christmas season, Disney does a fantastic job decorating both of their parks for the holiday season. And Buena Vista Street is no exception. It's home to a Christmas tree over by the Walt statue, but it is nowhere near as large or as impressive as the one at Disneyland, which probably should be the case, so no complaints here. Speaking of that Walt Disney statue, I think it's really cool that they brought one to California Adventure. when they did that full refurbishment of the park. He's standing, he's much more casual, he's still like looking to make it compared to the partner statue at Disneyland, which feels like the culmination of Walt Disney's work. Like he's admiring Main Street after finally completing it, you know? It's kind of like the two sides of Walt Disney, the before and the after. And that's kind of poetic. I kind of like that. When they removed that sunshine fountain, with the addition of Buena Vista Street, they replaced it with a much smaller fountain. It's not nearly as impressive, but I'm still happy that there's a fountain within the entrance area for DCA. Sometimes they turn it off because they have little performances in front of the fountain, so that's always great. Buena Vista Street has a solid streetmosphere. Sometimes they'll have people in character, just like on bikes, like roaming around. It's very well done. Of course, you'll see the classic Disney characters like Mickey Mouse, Donald, Minnie, Daisy. They're all roaming around Buena Vista Street from time to time. Something else I forgot to mention, during the Halloween season, they placed the Headless Horseman out front, and I think that's really cool. That's an awesome addition to Buena Vista Street. So that is my opinion on the entrance area for California Adventure. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I would love to hear in the comments below. Please like this video, and of course, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will catch you later.